Good evening, everybody, and welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl number 39. We're back from the World Cup, and this evening we're here and we're going to discuss it. So I have three lovely guests with me this evening. I've been a little bit gnomic about who they're going to be because this one was organised slightly at the last minute. But to my side, you'll notice we have the Martian has joined us. Hello, Mina.
Hello?
Up above we have Jock, or BB Jock, you may know him as, but just Jock is fine.
Evening.
And then directly above me we have Chicken23. Hello, Chicken.
Hello.
So three lovely people with, it turns out, a variety of experiences of World Cups, both now and in the past. And also, as I love to do if we can, totally by accident, from the three different formats. Chicken largely came to Blood Bowl through Fumble, he says. Jock has never played a game on Fumble, but has played a lot of Blood Bowl too. And Mina is basically a tabletopper who's never played online in her life. So we do have a variety of Blood Bowl experiences behind us. I, of course, am a poly bowler. I have done all of those formats. But I've never really been to a World Cup, and other people here have. So let's talk to them about who they are and their experiences, and then we'll talk about the World Cup itself. Just because you're sat there directly above me, I'm going to start by saying, hello, Chicken. Welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you on. So why have I invited you on the show?
I think it was because you found it interesting that I was pretty new to Blood Bowl and Fumble and ended up at a World Cup.
Yeah, by pretty new, how long have you been playing Blood Bowl?
I reckon I had my first game in May 2022, so last year. So
just over about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And has it grabbed you? Has it seized you? Is that why you're amongst us?
Very much so, yeah. So I've already was playing like online games. I play Worms Armageddon, so I was used to kind of gaming, and I had a Twitch channel that I was streaming Worms on, and that requires quite a lot of hand-eye coordination and kind of getting into. I wanted a game that was less involved being on the computer. So when I saw the box of Blood Bowl 2020 in a shop window, I thought, I used to play Warhammer when I was like really young in year 6, 7, and 8 at school, or when I was much younger. And I just decided to buy the box set. And then I was like, well, what do I do with this box set? How do I play this game? And I kind of Googled it and was lucky enough to find a club fairly local to me that I then joined the Discord and asked for a game of Blood Bowl and met someone. So I had my first games tabletop where someone taught me to play.
You randomly met someone on the internet and then turned up somewhere to play a game with them.
Yeah, it was a bit scary. I said to my wife, like, if I don't come back, you know where I am.
Left some contacts behind you.
Yeah, it was at a public setting, so it was in a community centre where they already had a club, and I just kind of found their Discord and arranged a game on there and turned up, and I played probably about a couple of weeks in a row with this guy. We did sevens at first and sort of took it easy. And then I eventually built my Black Hawk team, who I've played ever since. So I thought, if I'm going to learn this game, I'm going to stick to one race. And unfortunately, in the 2020 box set, I found out they don't give you the easiest races or the most competitive races.
No, they give you two terrible ones.
But I enjoy them. I like their style. I like grabbing people around and dodging the goblins and things. So anyway, so I was going to that club and playing there. And then a few of the people mentioned the World Cup and Blood Bowl tournaments and the NAF, and that fascinated me, like this whole kind of like FA of Blood Bowl. I just thought it was people playing a board game. I didn't realize how like sort of serious it was, and I think that really attracted me because of playing Worms online and tournaments and settings in that. I just kind of realized there was a tournament scene, and a few guys from the club went to a couple of tournaments that I missed out on, and then I thought, I'm going to go to a tournament. And I just researched it, and I went to the Bonehead podcast tournament last year, Beachhead in July. And that was a 3-game tournament. And surprisingly, I won my first 2 matches with Black Orcs.
With Black Orcs?
Yeah. And got to
doing wonders for the reputation of the Bonehead podcast.
and got to the top tables where Greenskin Phil beat me. 3-0 with his goblins, and I'd never played goblins before, and I was proud to lose to the tournament winner. And then from there, I kind of had a bit of a break from the tournament scene and carried on going to the club, and basically found out about the World Cup. Was playing Fumble as well at the time and streaming Fumble a little bit, and then Krista just said, "Oh, why go to the World Cup? You don't have to be good." And I think that was sort of the deciding factor that helped me sort of just go.
Which
Well,
Krista himself did prove at the World
yeah,
Cup.
yeah, and I got to meet him, and that was great. And I said, thank you for everything you do with Fumble, because that really helped me learn the game.
Yeah.
I felt like it's just great that you can play Blood Bowl at home and learn the game like that. So kind of my journey to the World Cup summed up there.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my heroes, Krista. It was one of my proudest things was to roll
Mm.
dice alongside the man. I do think it was, the World Cup was very well organised in the main. They will talk about where it could have perhaps been better as well. And I loved that they found some time to say well done to Galax Starscraper, who has done a lot for Blood Bowl in his time. But they had Krista there, who I think's done more, and didn't say a word. So I did think that was a slight misstep in my view. Excuse me. Now, Jock, I have advertised in the only place I mentioned who was coming on as a regional bloke, or I could have said, of course, a foreigner. Your name is both descriptive, but also it does worry me possibly a racial assault. So, Jock, you've presumably been to hundreds of World Cups at your ripe old age. Is that the case? And what did you enjoy about this one?
No, that's not true. This was my first World Cup. Your sources are wrong, sir. I am one of the lesser spotted PlayStation coaches of Blood Bowl 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in terms of how I ended up at the World Cup, if you'll permit me to go on a little tangent.
Go ahead.
Who is this for? I kind of discovered Blood Bowl back in the early 90s when a new kid moved to our school, and we dabbled with it for a summer. Me and a couple of mates had sort of taken him on board as the new kid. And then we went back to playing chess. And then a couple of years back now, when PlayStation 5 was due to be released, about that time, I actually saw an advert for Blood Bowl 2 for PlayStation. And dating myself, my last console was the SNES. And for some reason, I was like, I'm going to get a PlayStation 5 and I'm going to buy Blood Bowl 2 because that's cool. And I then spent 3
There's
weeks.
several mistakes in that sentence, but I'm not going to pick up on all of them. We'll let you carry on.
So I spent 3 weeks without sleep, pretty much, trying to snag this PlayStation 5 for lots of money. Eventually got one. Argos found a way to beat the scalpers, and I was there. And then I bought my Blood Bowl 2 for a fiver, which I was very pleased, bargain. And I posted on Facebook randomly, I've got this Blood Bowl 2 game. And actually, one of my old school friends that I'd played with in the 90s chimed up and says, "Hey, I'm on PlayStation 2, join my league." And I was like, wow. I hadn't spoken to him in like 2 decades, pretty much. It was a long time ago type thing. So yeah, I kind of got involved in PlayStation, picked up Dark Elves because I thought they looked cool. I remember being a Chaos All-Stars fan when I was a 12-year-old. I even had one of the old-fashioned Death Rollers. So started playing, and then before long, Tony, otherwise known as Yellow Ox, of Blood and Tears Perpetual League of PlayStation, said, "Hey, you should come to a tournament." And I was like, "Well, I've got no stuff." And he's like, "Don't worry about it." And so Ice Phoenix, again, one of the other league mates, said, "Yeah, I've got some Wood Elves for you. Come down." And so I went to Thrud in 21.
Okay.
And that was my first tournament. And I was hooked. I just absolutely loved rolling dice. It was so much more enjoyable to roll dub ones yourself than Blood Bowl 2.
It's a lot less ragey, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously it helps having someone across the way to kind of share your joy and sorrow.
Unless it's someone going, please a one, just before you roll the dice.
Yeah, I'm not
which I did have. And then every time it's a one, they celebrate. That, not
I
so
had
fun.
I had that.
Perhaps the same chap.
So anyway, that kind of led me on a path to play a whole bunch of tournaments fairly quickly. It turned out that I got some decent results. I don't know if it makes me a decent coach. We actually, that Thrud tournament in the team competition, Blood and Tears PlayStation coaches, we actually won the team competition that year. And we got some very special dice, which we still hold dear to our hearts. And that was kind of the kernel for when the World Cup kind of conversation started around Alicante. Should we go? So yeah, we ended up in Alicante, 12 coaches from as far west as Canada to as far east as Greece, Spanish, Irish,
United by your love of PlayStationing.
Yeah, so it was very much a case of this is a chance to meet in the real world, so to speak. Obviously, some of us had played as a team at Thrud for a couple of years, but it was a chance to get the wider group together. And so, yeah, we all went off to Alicante for the first World Cup. And I mean, obviously, some people might know I'm fairly competitive. Certainly, some would call me try hard, although I object to that. I'm just ambitious and enjoy being competitive. But I went to the World Cup without any ambition whatsoever, really, other than to have an absolute blast. And we did have an absolute blast. So yeah, that's kind of
Just a quick question in the chat. Was there a Team Xbox there that anyone heard about? Did they send any people Xbox?
not sure.
I didn't meet one.
There we are. PlayStation beating Xbox in the Blood Bowl wars, as well as in so many other ways.
By default.
Yeah. So, did you have a good time with these random people from across Europe and indeed Canada?
Yeah, Canada. Yeah, no, it was fabulous because with PlayStation you can mic up through your controller. So a lot of our games we played like micing up and chatting. So
Yeah.
I'd play with Sam or Midnight Ogre in Canada, and I'd be up to the wee hours of the morning chatting to him on PlayStation post match. You'd play your league match, and then you'd be chatting for a couple hours. So we knew each other. Obviously, just never met anybody in real life. So
Yes, in that very modern way of someone I know really well and is a good friend of mine, but we've never actually met.
Yeah, so it was quite cool. Waiting on the Alicante beachfront for the sort of team to assemble, if you will, because people were coming in different locations, different times. I even picked up Andy Davo, and he fed me a bacon sandwich before we went to the airport. So
you picked up Andy Davo in what sense? I have to ask.
only a lift.
Was it a short skirt and a thumb at the side of the road? Was it?
It was the bacon sandwich and the brown sauce that tempted me in. So
I mean, I do know I witnessed that people were offering him 10 euros for a selfie. That was, I mean, there was no talk other than where is Andy Davo in Alicante prior to the World Cup.
I cannot confirm nor deny that he was selling pictures for 10 euros at all.
But I did also have a fabulous experience. I was queuing during the first day and the food disaster. I fully noped out of the 2-hour queue and went and queued very poorly chosen for the Spanish food rather than the. I should have gone to the noodle bar next to it because they had 4 people serving. Turns out the Spanish food had one very unhappy man serving very slowly whilst hating all of us. But it was doing some really interesting stuff. It was particularly doing an octopus ceviche, and I really like octopus, so I decided I would wait and have the octopus. It was beautiful. While I was queuing, just as I got to the front, I was slightly outmaneuvered by someone who pretended they were coming to say hello, but actually was just blatantly queue jumping in front of me. And he was sort of like, "Oh, hello," and I was like, "Oh, hello," and he goes, "I have no idea who you are, but I come to say hello." I was like, And then just as he got to the front, having stayed there, 3 of his friends arrived. So as I was waiting for them, another couple of German people came to the other side of the stand and were waiting to see if they could get served. And I overheard a conversation that was, I don't speak a lot of German, as you'll realise. It was German, Andy Davo. German, Andy Davo. German, Andy Davo. Andy Davo, German, Andy Davo. Andy Davo, German. So he did sort of haunt the whole World Cup, I felt. Everywhere you went, there was discussion of where is Davo? And people taking pictures with him and him hiding behind things so he could get 2 minutes to himself to, have a breath, poor man. But he was quite famous and quite everywhere. And I quite enjoyed that. Anyway, there's my Andy Davo story.
Yeah.
So you had a good time. You met Andy Davo, which is the highlight of everyone's World Cup.
Much taller in real life.
Isn't he?
People have met him. Yeah, he's giant.
He's very tall.
He is.
Yeah.
Mina, we haven't said hello to you. Hello. You are therefore
Hello?
the experienced one in the gang. You're the person that's done a World Cup before, haven't you?
I have. I did Dawnburn. So, and before Dawnburn, so I played. I started playing a long time ago, and then I had a 9-year gap in having little people, and then I returned to the game, and that's when actually my husband decided to play as well. So he also plays now. And I remember going in preparation for the last World Cup for Dawnburn. So I was put in with 5 random people that we were going to go all together. So I met them. I managed to meet them all actually before we went. Brio I already knew from before. I think he's come over for the water bowl and things in the past. And so we had one Dane, and then the others were Brits. And I met them at the UK BBL, a few of them, and I was asked, "Are you any good?" And I thought,
Are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Not particularly good, but like I'm okay. Um, and I don't play it enough effectively to get good at the game, but I enjoy the game, so that's why I play it. And on the first day, I won all three games and topped the board. And
Excellent.
so they all thought I was obviously amazing, which I'm not. But anyway, the next day, this is I guess, the first time I met Andy Davo because he was number two on the board,
Ah,
and the two of us had to play each other. Now he obviously takes the game a lot more seriously than I, and I think there was a slight sort of disappointment that I don't take it very seriously. But I'm very sorry, Andy. I don't take it that seriously. I do enjoy the game, but I don't take it that seriously. And we played a game. It was lovely. I did lose, which is what I expected to happen anyway. And and yeah, and then I think I drew a game, and I can't remember the last game. What happened? I've forgotten. It was such a long time ago now. But yeah, no, that was a good World Cup. It was good fun. The 9 games, although less well organized than this one. The organisation was poorer. There was also no real social thing afterwards around the tournament, which Alicante definitely had.
hmm.
The weather wasn't obviously as good in Dormerden as it is in Alicante, so there's a number of things there. But they did generally finished a bit earlier there. It didn't go on as long. Um, I would say that with Alicante, all I would say is that the two things I would have changed for it was the times of the games to
Hmm.
finish earlier. To finish maybe about 7:30, not loads earlier, just 7:30 would have done. And then I think also for the poor people that did eat meat and ate everything going, the queue was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I felt like on the last day, it was really unnecessary because it was all sandwiches. You could have just had two and signposting people, signposting. Come on, like the people with dietary requirements, have a sign saying vegetarians and glutens and whatever, like standard over here. No signposting, and I think that would have sped, especially that last day when it wasn't necessary
Yeah.
to have such a hideous queue. It was moving fast, but it was really very long,
It
actually.
was one thing that really
Um,
disappointed me. I thought of all the things that could go wrong. I'd had a look at the website, and it looked like the caterers were very used to doing large-scale catering. Paellas that feed thousands of people. So I thought, well,
yeah,
they'll have a system. They'll know how to bang that stuff out. And it seems they really didn't and really don't.
yeah. So that's the two things I would have done is have it finish a little bit earlier, um, just have not as big a gap. I get there's all the tech in putting all the results in and getting the draw, um, but that's if that's a bit the two things I would have changed.
Now, did you
But
enjoy yourself though?
otherwise,
You
I
said you
thought,
go for fun. Did you
oh
have fun?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Good.
yeah, I did have fun. The other thing was a little tiresome with the people who assumed I was a wag.
Yeah. Now I want to
Um,
ask about this.
uh,
I described you. So firstly, a slight apology. I haven't talked about who was coming on the stream, but I did in Andy Davo's stream actually. Say that we had some regional bloke, some person fairly new to Blood Bowl, and a self-described unicorn. Now it isn't self-described. I was wrong,
oh,
is it?
no,
But the term unicorn has been used, so I think
yeah.
that's a way into what we do want to talk about. Why
Yeah.
do people call you a unicorn, and how did that impact on your
Um,
World Cup?
well, I guess I'm a unicorn because I'm female and also because I'm not white. I think is how I've become a unicorn. So my husband has described me as a unicorn. Alex Wormel, many years ago, a few good few years, I've known the guy for a long time, has said you're a bit of a unicorn, Mina, and I've also only once ages ago, and at the World Cup. In fact, the guy that we got the bus repeatedly, seemingly with the same team, playing Norse, had a Viking hat, plastic hat on, very cheerful chap, with his sort of sheepskin thing over
I
him
thought
and
it was a
very
rug
sticky
that he had on his shoulders, wasn't it? Not a
rug.
cloak. I
I
think it
don't
was a
know.
rug.
Yeah, and he had pajamas on, pajama bottoms on, and on the last day he said, there's loads of people. He said to me, loads of people come to me and ask to have a photo with me, but really, it's taken me a while to pluck up the courage to come and ask you, can I have a photo with you? He said, because you're the real unicorn here. There you go. So I was called a unicorn at the weekend. Yeah, I mean it was fine, and I did have a photo with him. He's a nice guy. He wasn't being horrible or anything. I did have there was one slightly annoying, I guess, comment. I don't think he meant it that way. But I'd finished my game, gone to the toilet, come back, asked one of my teammates, Liam, how he'd gone, and he'd won his game. And his opponent, who was I think one German guy on an otherwise Italian team, he asked me if I was his girlfriend, and I said no. And then he asked if I was one of the other teammates' girlfriend. And I said, no, I've just played your teammate. And he looked at me like,
Firstly, Thulian should be so lucky, and secondly, it's an interesting assumption to make, isn't it? Is it an okay assumption?
Well, when I just said I've just played your teammate, he looked really confused. And then he was like, well, whose girlfriend are you? And I thought, oh my God. So I said to him, well, actually, my husband's at home, back in the UK, with our children. And he was thinking, well, if your husband, and you can see the look on his face.
Excuse me, who owns this woman?
Your husband's at home. Well, if your husband's at home, what the hell are you doing here? I mean, that was clearly the look on his face. And I had to just say, look, I'm here playing Blood Bowl like you are. So and he just found it genuinely very confusing.
I mean, that's 100% not okay. So my apologies for
no
that. Hopefully it wasn't
I don't think he meant it. I don't think he meant it badly, but I don't think he realised quite how it comes across.
Well, this is what we talk about, microaggressions, isn't it? People that don't mean any harm, but they're making those small assumptions that actually are just constantly on the wrong side of where an assumption might be in 2023, perhaps.
Yeah. But then we had, and then also, when we were socialising, sort of like on the Wednesday night, the Thursday night before the tournament started, there were similar things like that, because most of the women that were out with us, to be fair, were wags, I was the only one who wasn't. And so people were chatting to us all, and it's just all of us as a group in general, and assuming that I'm also, and I have to say, no, I'm playing. I'm here to actually play the game. So yeah, I started playing actually quite a long time ago, before I had the children, and it was Barney. Barney, probably, I think it's Barney the Lurker, isn't he, on this game of thing? Yeah, so Barney, I've known Barney for a long time, over about 23 years, and he's the one who introduced me to the game, and so I started playing it, and I used to go to actually not just Blood Bowl tournaments. It was mostly actually mixed game tournaments where you had. So my husband would play 40k, and I would play Blood Bowl, and at the same time. So there's one in Preston called Toy Soldier. It used to be like that, and then I started. Then I did the Water Bowl a couple of times. And my last Water Bowl, I was 7 months pregnant with the 14-year-old.
Wow.
So yes.
And is the 14-year-old now playing? Are you one of these people raising a new generation of Blood Bowlers?
Yes. I am raising the next generation. So we all went to Thrudball. I bought 2 player tickets for my husband and I, so we played the same tournament at the same time. And I bought 2 food tickets for the kids. And we went camping at Thrud this year. And then actually, the kids played in the sevens on the Friday night, while Dave and I just got drunk. And then on Saturday, then on Friday night, I think Joe, one of the organisers, said, we've got a couple of spots actually if your kids want to play. I was like, they are not going to play 6 games. There's no way. I mean, the eldest probably would have done it and then hated it. So I said, look, we'll have 1 ticket and I'll discuss it with the kids and then they can alternate. And then that way they get to play. Yeah. So that's what I decided to do. And I spoke to the kids about it. And I said, look, there's no way you'll hate it playing 6 games. It's a lot. So they did. They alternated and they loved it. And then they loved the game.
I don't know if any of you saw, just on that subject, we did have Mike Davis, friend of the show, San0638, was the Pied Piper leading a team of children in Alicante.
Yeah.
One of his own, but also Minnie Morg, the winner of Most Promising Newcomer at the last NAF. And his dad, Eyeball Paul, was there, and some other younger people, and they did incredibly well. I mean, Minnie Morg must be 13, maybe, might even be 12 still, and he played all 9 games and
he's
was
quite
tussling
young.
with some of the top in Europe, and looking completely unfazed by it. It was amazing. I was really chuffed.
One of the evenings we were out in the bars, and there was a guy we ended up talking to, and he'd been on your show, PC, about getting kids into Blood Bowl, and he went to the World Cup with a team of kids, like it's a school trip. I think they did it
That would have
as.
been the lovely stick.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
at the
they and then he,
NAF.
right, and they were at the World Cup at Alicante, and I saw him the next day, and they all was him and
Yeah.
5 kids on the squad, I think, and it was
Fantastic.
great, get the kids into the
I
game.
think it's great to see, and not just because I'm old and sad.
I tried to
It's
teach
not-
my.
I saw them. Sorry.
So I was going to say I've had a.
talking about.
Jock,
Sorry.
when have you coming in for?
Like I say, talking about meeting people at the World Cup, I think that's the other thing that was really cool about the World Cup. So I was there on the Wednesday, ready for the opening ceremony on the Thursday, and met Drakenspear from Canada of Ask Sven Drakenspear blog fame. So I actually got to enjoy a pint and chat stats and data with the man, and met Chu Blocker as well, which I think is a very cool coach name.
Yeah,
I
I want him and Randall Calrissian to be friends.
Yeah, for sure. And then met the 3D Block guys, blogs from America. I think Chicken, you played their team as well. We were chatting about earlier.
Yeah.
I think happenstance meetings that you get in amongst 2,232 coaches was phenomenal and definitely fun.
I actively sought out Rumbird. I just had to know. I've always had a theory that he's actually quite small, but I was worried it was just the angle of the camera he uses when streaming. So I did actively I hunted him down like a stalker, and spent some time with the lovely young man. And he is actually just reasonably average in height. Disappointingly not small, not tall, somewhere in the middle. Isn't that
He was
the
one
way?
I didn't get the chance to meet, so gutted I didn't meet him. So next World Cup, run bad.
But while we're on the subject, I also did, I had a lot of people come up and shake my hand and say they enjoy this show, it was really fantastic and incredibly flattering. And a key reason why we're back. I enjoy doing it, and to hear that other people enjoy listening to it, made me think, well then, why not carry on, despite the protestations of my partner. So Mina, we went to the World Cup. You were the unicorn, but basically you just had a good time, didn't you? It was all right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, it was good. It's good. And I had a bit of a holiday either side. So, it's on Wednesday. We went for a swim in the sea, and Thursday went for a swim in the sea, and then on the Monday, walked up the castle. So yeah, no, it was good. It was good fun.
Yeah, did we see some sights while we were there, Chicken and Jock? Did we get about Alicante?
Yeah, well, I went to the castle as well on the Monday, which was it was actually quite a funny story. My wife wasn't too pleased, but I actually missed my flight home. I booked the wrong date, and I booked my hotel the right flights, but I've never done this before. But basically, I did the date. So when it came to my flight, I'm going to do online check-in and everything. It was it's gone. Like you don't have a flight. So I was frantically kind of trying to find a flight the night before. Luckily, I managed to get a fairly reasonably priced. It was about £85 another flight to Luton, so I was okay. But that gave me the whole Monday to go, like the extra day to go around Alicante, and went up the castle, which was amazing. And I was really grateful for it, to be honest. But it's a bit of a cock up on my behalf, but it was worth it. So yeah.
All part of the story already, though, isn't it? It's part of the anecdote.
Yeah.
John,
I've never missed a...
were you out and about in downtown Alicante?
Well, I went with my wife, Catherine, and we hung out until the following Thursday. And the Monday after, I was just absolutely knackered. So I ended up just having a really long lie-in type thing. And we went for lunch and just mooched and just chilled out. And then we thought, well, the guys have talked about going to the castle. We should maybe go and see stuff. So we went to the castle on Tuesday, about 10:30, 11, got up there. And we were still sort of knackered because we'd done, like you've mentioned before, a lot of drinking and not much sleep at all. I found myself in a karaoke bar at one point. In fact, only my co-captain of the other team, because we had two teams, he was in the karaoke bar till nearly 4 on the Saturday, and we decided to get a taxi on Sunday, and we had to sort of drag him out of his bed as the taxi was arriving because he was still snoozing. So that was interesting. But yeah, we went up to the castle Tuesday. And we kind of looked at each other and thought, well, it's a nice view, but are we here because we're expected to be here? So we got a coffee at a nice cafe, And then we went back down, and then we spent most of the next 3 days just kind of like just having nice lie-ins, going for a nice lunch, having siestas, going for nice meals, and actually didn't really do a tourist thing at
Yeah,
all. We just
I
went,
really kind of enjoyed doing exactly that. I did put my ankles into the Mediterranean. I wouldn't say I even got as far as the knees, and then I turned around and went,
You
well,
didn't
I've done that.
swim?
No, I didn't swim.
I did swim. I didn't
Oh,
bring. I didn't pack any
I went
trunks.
arms all in.
The sea is a roof for scuba diving, and a beach is just dirt by the sea. I need a pool and
Oh,
cocktails if I'm going to be swimming.
oh,
So I
I
had a
went
little
in the
paddle,
I went in the sea.
I
and
forgot to pack
I enjoyed.
trunks.
I did the same. I arrived on the late on the Wednesday, so we had the whole Thursday, and then I had the Monday, Tuesday on the after the event as well. And I thought, oh, I'll
Yeah.
just have some lie-ins and see a bit of Alicante. But unfortunately, my experience didn't change much. We were still averaging 3 hours sleep a night. I was still trying to keep up with men
I
much
know.
younger than me, which I really shouldn't have been
Oh.
doing. And then out drinking them largely at every turn. And as they're not on the show, they can't say any different. Um,
How did
I
did that
think
To be
influence
next,
fair,
your
if
on
I
the
went to
Monday?
another World Cup, I would probably take some more sensible decisions than that. Because I mean, I'm not kidding. Averaging 3 hours, some were a lot less. So I
I think
felt that
the
did
I
lack
slept
of
impact my
more than
blood loss
that.
slightly.
yeah, I
I
think the
felt
lack
like I
of
slept
sleep
more
though
than
was
that.
part of the logistics ultimately.
Yeah.
Certainly that first day which overran. I
Yeah,
think we got back to town like at 11. So by the time you go get something to eat and
yeah,
sort
we
of like
exactly.
siesta,
It's not as bad as it sounds. I mean,
Yeah,
we were
yeah,
standing up from
yeah.
dinner
One
at sort of
o'clock.
1 a.m. and then
and,
going for a couple of drinks afterwards. Before you know it, it's 3. You get back to the digs and
and
it's maybe 4.
It was an early coach, wasn't it, on Friday morning? I was a bit surprised about how early I was getting up to get to the venue on
How
time.
were the coaches? Because I fully noped out of those. I rented a car. I thought they're going
Oh,
to go
Okay.
wrong.
I
So
thought it was okay.
good.
Mine was
It was
brilliant
okay.
in the comedy value, like sort of getting to the bus stop and first of all, like just going around Alicante and seeing all the other squads, like you could just see the Blood Bowl players, like all grouped together going around, which is quite fun.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of trying to work out which bus stop it was. So I was by the main harbour area where the beach was,
Right.
and eventually, like the coach was just like down there with the big writing, NAF World Cup, which is really cool. It kind of looked like a bit of a tour
Yeah.
bus. Um, and on the coach there was a French squad, and they were already like cheering and singing and really kind of like pumping everyone up quite a lot for 7:15 or whatever time it was that first Friday
Oh
coach
God.
was. It was pretty
Yeah, we were
early.
on the eight something. We were on the eight something, which I was very grateful of, I have to say, because
Yeah.
the idea. So we had to leave our Airbnb at 8 o'clock to walk down, and we weren't very far from where the bus went from. So it was like a 10-minute walk or something. So we were leaving at 8. So get up about, I don't know. I got up at 7. Well, I put the alarm at 7 to have a shower and I ate breakfast every morning. Make myself, yeah. I had eggs and avocado on toast,
Ah,
and I squeezed myself an orange
so you'd fit in
to
down
have fresh
south.
orange juice.
See, I didn't. I
There are some people up the
didn't.
north that are
I
civilized.
am
You see, some
no
of them.
no I'm from I'm from the south originally, so
Ah, well,
yeah,
that's what it is.
I
from the
didn't
proper
manage to
south,
get.
from the coast.
I missed my breakfast, and I didn't know where the supermarket was because I'd got in quite sort of late on the Thursday
Spanish.
and met my squad. So
Yeah,
I hadn't eaten, and that's when we had to queue to get in, and
Yeah.
then there was the big queue, and I hadn't had breakfast yet, and we had that first, the first bit of getting in before game one, and
Yes.
I was absolutely
yeah.
starving. I was in not a good place because I'd had a few beers the day before, hadn't eaten, and eventually
Oh
managed to
no.
got a baguette just before game one started that I was sort of shoving in my mouth to get my blood sugar back up and running. But yeah, the second few days, the coaches ran later. They had a later coach leaving on the next 2 days, and I don't think anyone was waking up for the first coach, in the early one, and everyone was just going to like the half 8 one or something. I can't remember the exact time,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought that was, credit to the organisers how they got that whole coach system because there were so many of them going to the venue. I think that was brilliant. It
Yeah.
was
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I
it
thought
was
it would hugely fail. So, and I mean, it also helped that actually I was doing some airport pickups anyway, and where we were staying was right on a main road just out of Alicante, so it was literally 2 left turns to get to the IFA. So, and we had an
I
off-street
thought, yeah.
parking spot, so I thought it all makes sense. I'll rent a car.
the
But
buses
actually, the
worked,
buses
and
seemed to work, didn't they?
They
The
did
bus
work.
is
I mean,
fine. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was like Chicken. I was on the 7:15. Me and Tony, the two captains, we were actually quite pleased because we got to the front of the door and we got in to
Yeah,
make sure because there was a sort of note for captains that we had to register our squad. So we were like, we need to be responsible captains and go there. I think the challenge though around the coaches was the lack of communication on it. It wasn't until like 1:30 the night before they were kind of being told, "Hey, coach stops are here," and I suspect, with a sort of mild critical eye, if you will, on this particular aspect. I mean, the World Cup was phenomenal and really enjoyable, but when they asked everybody to sort of confirm where they were staying, it looked like they were trying to plot the most optimal bus stops. When actually, an event organizer's hat on, you would probably say, "Here are my bus stops. Which one do you want?"
yeah. Get yourself to one of these.
And so I think they
Yeah.
caused themselves some challenges. I mean, the buses were an obvious visible challenge.
I think there's
Um,
no challenge they caused that couldn't have been solved by some, experienced commentator, podcaster, and streamer, maybe doing some explanatory videos, um,
yeah,
perhaps for a
yeah, for
small
sure.
fee. But
Uh,
Andy Devo apparently
Andy didn't
wasn't
want to go.
available, so yeah, that's
He was busy doing the PA,
it
so he
couldn't
had
yeah,
photos
it
to
couldn't
take.
happen. It
Yeah.
couldn't happen.
It's too busy selling selfies.
We have had a couple of points in the chat just before we move on, and I lose them completely. I do want to touch upon. The first one is McNaughton. McNaughton has chimed in and said, "If you were confused, Jock, an avocado is a green thing that can't be deep fried that they eat in England." Okay,
You could
so
probably
it's
deep. I reckon you
almost
could
like
deep
a
fry it.
almost like a vegetable.
Oh,
I
well,
think
I
hang
it.
on a
mean,
second. Whoa,
if
whoa,
I may
whoa!
be
You
the
can deep fry
typecast
that.
Scottish person, I can confirm I've never had an avocado, deep fried or otherwise.
You have
So
missed out. They are very, very good. What you
They
want to do
are
is you want
nice.
to just
Yeah.
smash them, not mash them, smash them onto some toast, and then have a Tide Pod to wash it down.
there we
And the
go.
other one, Mina, someone who called XXXXX the Lurker, obviously trying to keep his name hidden away from us,
Good old Barney.
wants to know who's the best at Blood Bowl in your house? With your partner having taken it up and your children coming up through, are you still the queen of Blood Bowl?
I'm not sure I am.
No.
I think I know. I think it's now. Well, recently I've clearly I'm failing with lizards, so I think I need to change my team, and then I may well beat my husband. But at the minute, I would say Dave. I'm afraid is probably a bit better than I am.
What does Dave
Heartbreaking.
play when you play against each other?
And he tends to do agility teams, does do elves.
It's
He
cheating.
started off
He's
with
cheating.
rats. Yeah, he fouls. He plays a completely different style of game than I do. Not the same at all. Um, but yeah, it's. I mean, we still enjoy it. I think we tried to play a half yesterday. I was not feeling too well yesterday, and was still very tired from my weekend last weekend. So need to catch up on sleep and things. But and he scored. He got the ball off me and scored. Swine. So
Yeah, we can hear the pain. Um, I'm
And
not
then
gonna I'm not gonna
I
allow you to
managed to
say
get
the
the ball
same.
off back off him, but because he came down, I failed to pick up the ball, which is a thing, and this is the ongoing thing that happens with us. I can't pick up the ball on a free, and then he comes down. I rolled too many skulls. It was bad.
That
He didn't
happens
roll
to
any
me. I
skulls.
blame the dice entirely. Um,
He
actually,
was doing two dice up hills,
I don't usually blame the dice, but actually at the World Cup, I had a very good day one. 3 lovely games, all went my way. Day two, it fell off an absolute cliff, and I played a lovely guy called Salty McCutt, who's from London, on day one, and he was
Yeah.
moaning about it's the third time I've played him. And I've never had a set of dice to give him, though normally I do have a set of PurpleChest D6, which I hand to people I play. And he's moaning that he's heard about these, and friends of his have got them, and he's never got them. And the delivery I was expecting has now arrived, so I will be able to finally send him. Let me just grab a prop
Some dice.
that I should have had prepared. My new set of lovely dice. So
Oh wow.
he'll get 2 of those. But he was so sort of not grumpy, but he's a really nice chap, and he mentioned it a few times. So at the end of the game, I said, "Look, I've got these ones from the dice set they canned out at Alicante. You can take my last 2 pair. I know my other set are on the way. They've just been delayed." And at the end of day 2, my dice went so badly, rolling with the World Cup dice, that he sent my dice back to me. and then forgot to get them back.
Oh,
So despite not believing in all that
oh,
superstition nonsense, day 3 I was rolling my dice again,
And it went better.
and
that's
they went a lot
fine.
better. Yeah, they went a lot better. So
I
I
never give you
guess
Well,
dice roll.
I
I
got
guess I'm going to have to join the dice mad now, aren't I?
Yeah.
I got given a pair of dice by one of my opponents. I got given dice all weekend. But anyway, this particular set, I think they roll fewer ones. Anyway, so I used them against the person who gave them to me because he gave them to me at the beginning of the game, and they did do some casualties, so it was good. And I used them yesterday against my husband, and he was like, "They're ridiculous." I was like, "Well, they were gifted to me by an opponent, so you can't complain."
Well, I mean, I hear
But
if you
I
make
agree.
a salt water solution, quite strong salt, and drop the dice in and spin it, if it always ends on the
Yeah,
6th, yeah,
yeah.
they're definitely wrong uns.
Yeah, I mean, they do roll occasional ones, but it's just
Now,
not
to
like
finish
not
off
like the
the
other one.
family drama thing, Mina, I've got
Yeah,
a slight follow up
kids
to
play now.
definitely not Barney's question. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not going to allow you to say it's the same because it can't be. So when you do play your beloved partner at Blood Bowl, does the win
Yeah,
matter to you more or less than against another human?
it matters more.
Okay, that's a very honest admission. Um, I can't
And
imagine playing my
I
partner.
hate losing.
I
I
bet.
hate losing to him. We had a league
Is
game,
he
and
smug
I
if he
could
wins?
because no, it's okay. But like, it's just it was that I couldn't pick up the ball. I failed to pick up the ball twice, and he scored. And it was just like elves. And this was the first game that I lost against him in our league, last league I was in, and then yesterday, I mean, I don't. It might have ended up a draw. I don't know. We didn't play the second half, so I was just so tired. So it may have ended up a draw. May have ended up losing again. And yeah. Otherwise, we've always consistently draw. Yeah, it's been a draw all the
That's the
way.
perfect
Whenever
result
we,
amongst people that love
I
each other,
know.
surely.
The kids now started playing, so they went to the Stunty Cup
Yeah.
yesterday, a Stunty Slam, and so I asked for 2 reserve tickets, and Alex said, "Who's going to play?" I was like, "I don't know, 2 of us, I suppose." So the kids played, and they really enjoyed it. So and I said, so people say, "Oh, which of you's playing?" I
Hmm.
said, "Well, neither. We're parents this time, and we've just brought the children to
How
play."
lovely.
So yeah, so we brought the next generation.
Yeah, I want to.
I
I think
guess, I mean,
circle round.
yeah,
We'll do
I think
another
because
one with
both
some
of us
kids
play.
someday and get them on and get them just talking. Because last time we had some adults on as well as one child, and I
Yeah,
think we just want to do one with some kids and just ask them how they feel about Blood Bowl. Because there is a whole new. I mean, I saw in a London tournament I went to recently. They're actually starting a whole league just for the younger players, so they
yeah,
can
that's a good
interact with and
idea.
play each other as well as play some of the adults. Because they've got so many that want to take it up and play, which I think is fantastic. Speaking of young people playing, we haven't spoken to Chicken for ages. There he is, presumably
He's a younger
roosting.
one.
He's a younger one, as you described him earlier, as you asked me. Is
Well,
he a
he's
younger
probably the
one there?
youngest on the
Is
call,
he
isn't he?
younger? Let's just
Oh,
assume he
What's his
looks
name?
good. I'm going to come back to you, Chicken. We're going to get a little more, not structure on it, because I don't really believe in structure. But let's throw some points out about actually sort of reviewing the World Cup. What were your favourite things that happened in the 3 days? And also, people are going to want to know, so I should ask, what team did you coach? How did it go? And then as you're doing that, perhaps your favourite things will come to you. So what team did you coach and how did it go?
so I was coaching Black Orcs,
So
because they
badly, it
came.
went badly.
It didn't go. I got some valuable draws for the squad.
Okay.
And I like how they play. It's all I've played on tabletop and even on Fumble. Like I said, I just sort of stuck to
If
one
I
team.
give you another team, will you paint it up and play something that isn't Black Orcs and maybe enjoy your Blood Bowl more?
I still enjoy playing with Black Orcs, although I have lost quite a few games with them. I've
That's
lost a
not
lot more
great
than I've
shock
won.
to any of us, mate. But look, if you're
Uh,
loving your Blood Bowl with Black Orcs, I think that's real testament to someone that's fallen in love with this game. So
yeah, I think the favourite things from the World Cup was the friends I've made. So I didn't really know my squad that well. I knew a couple of them from the league that I go to in the club in Welling, but the other guys were new. And we also had, you know, how you could get a random person assigned to your squad,
yes,
like someone who got a single ticket.
Mm.
So we had a random assigned to our squad,
Oh.
and we were all a bit like, oh. how's this going to go? We didn't know the guy. Is he going to be like super competitive, or is he going to go really easy going? And he was great. And we really got on well with him, and he met us. So there's all these guys.
Had they put someone English with you? Because they did try and pair nationalities up, or at least
Yeah,
languages.
yeah, he was English. So he was up near from Birmingham or living in that sort of area, and we're all from down south. But we all started a WhatsApp group, so we met up on the Thursday, had some drinks. We're going out for
That's good.
tapas every evening after the tournament as well. So, and some of the guys that I were also in the squad that I didn't know, I found out they're local to me. So I played Blood Bowl with one of them last week,
Excellent.
and now I've got some
Oh,
guys,
cool.
people to play Blood Bowl with locally.
Very cool.
The other thing I really enjoyed was, I think, the sense of camaraderie. I can't pronounce it, but like everyone being there for Blood Bowl was brilliant. And I think even though we had to queue to get in on that Friday morning, I kind of really liked the
Camaraderie. Sorry,
anticipation.
couldn't stop myself. Couldn't stop
Yeah, I
myself.
know,
Yeah.
that's
I
the
held it
word.
back,
Yeah.
but it's camaraderie. Sorry.
And I really enjoyed like kind of the anticipation to game one. Although I was starving, but the anticipation to game one was really good.
Now,
Well,
as
I
someone
think
fairly new to Blood Bowl, I mean, did you go on the Thursday night to the pier?
yes,
Jock, were you
that
there?
I was, yeah, I was there.
And Mina, did you
Yeah.
make it down?
Yeah.
How did you all feel about that? Because I was a bit numbed by just that many people all standing there singing "Our Game Is Blood Bowl" or whatever that appalling version of a song was.
And then
eh,
we also had the Greatest Show, the song from The Greatest Showman,
We
didn't we?
did, yes.
yeah.
That was the song, and there's lots of people who didn't know it, and I was like, "It's The Greatest Showman,
No,
come on!"
it's when I shut the door, the wife plays it. I do
This is The
shut the door,
Greatest
but I do
Show.
recognise it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
was that? How did you find that as someone fairly new to the scene to suddenly be on a pier with 3,000 people with assorted wives and partners? I'm sure there were some male partners there. No, there weren't. But there should have been, because
Probably
Blood
not.
Bowl should be more diverse, and hopefully next time there will
There
be.
won't be. There won't be.
But
I'll tell you
some
now.
children and other people. How did that feel? And then how going into the hall with 2,400 people? How did it feel, Chicken?
I think if I'm being brutally honest, the meetup the night before, I was a little bit like, what was the point? I wasn't too sure really if there was going to be a bit more. Like
Yeah.
I think maybe I expected a little
Nothing
bit
happened
more
over a
from that.
really long time.
Yeah, we all were getting there, and then it was like, okay, and then there was some announcements, and then it was like, see ya. I was like, okay, I didn't really get that, if I'm being really honest. And it was, I think what hit me with the 2000 Blood Ballers was everyone starting game one and like the clock starting, because
Yeah.
I hadn't seen a tournament like that with the big timer on the wall and everyone just starting, and that was great, because some of the other games people were starting early, whereas that game one we all started at the same time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I managed to finish that game quite early. I played Skaven, which I was dreading playing a Skaven team, being Black Orcs, managed to draw, which I was pleased
Pretty good.
about.
That's good.
And then I had some time to like kind of take it all in, because I think we finished about an hour early. He did the DACO and just kept wasting turns, so didn't play Blood Bowl for half his game.
The withdrawn offense, I think you'll find that's called on this show, but fair enough.
Okay,
Hey,
and we
we'll say
finished.
that.
and we finished early, and that gave me time then to kind of go around and really admire all the pop-up stands like in the exhibitor hall, and I thought that was amazing, all the third-party models, but also some of the painted teams that you could see. Really loved that stadium. I think it was about, was it like €1,000 or
Was it?
€1,500?
Wow.
Yeah.
There was a whole stadium there, and I was like, took a photo of that and said to my wife, "Oh, I've just bought this just to sort of wind her up to see what the reaction was."
I did manage to
Did you
pop around
send
some
them
of the
from home?
stands occasionally, but mainly because there will be an episode, hopefully, where I'm going to get some of the makers on and talk to them about that side of it, because we've never talked to any of them. So hopefully Charlie Victor Games and a couple of others will come on and we'll do an episode about that. Jock, same sort of question. What were you coaching? How did it go? And what were your big takeaways from the World Cup? Your big impressions?
So I was playing Dark Elves because for a long time that's all I owned. I bought them at Thrud charity auction.
Oh yeah.
And so I played elves of some sort.
I
I
play one
went
of the
with
top 3 races just because that's all I have. Yeah.
honestly. Although that said, I was at Stunty Slam yesterday because I managed to acquire some ogres, so
Hey.
I'm starting to branch out. But yeah, I've been playing Dark Elves for a couple of years. a bit like chicken, actually, with a view to mastering the race and learning it in that sense. Largely speaking, I didn't go out. I mean, I touched on I've been quite competitive and I'm quite competitive, but I went out to the World Cup not really with any sort of strong, firm ambitions for myself, just to go and have fun. I think I set my target of to get 6 wins, and I went 6-2-1, which was nice. But actually, I was pretty ambivalent about it. I mean, it was nice that I got my 6 wins that I decided to shoot for. I don't often kind of like try and shoot for a number. My typical ambitions for a tournament are, can I have on a 2-day or 6 different races is kind of my starting requirement for a good tournament. And I didn't actually have any team expectations. As a team captain, you might think, oh, you'd like to perform well, but we were ranked as 295th based on the ELO rankings going in from San's lovely Tableau data. And if you'd asked me before the World Cup, what do you think you're going to get as a team? I literally had no answer for you because I didn't.
I just have to come in and challenge here. You talked about your personal record. I was speaking to a admittedly quite drunk Lycos at the very end of the event, and I asked him, lovely man. I said, Dave, how'd you go? And he looked me in the eye and he went, I didn't. There's no such thing as a personal record. It's only the team. And then staggered off into the distance, somewhat hazily. Is he right? At a team event, should we care about our individual scores? Are you being toxic, Jock, by saying what you got? I mean,
Lycos is 100% right. I mean, I drew Mankes in round 1, Dark Elf Mirror, and for those that know, he won the Welsh National, so a lad that can roll dice well. Lucky man. And I actually went down the team at the time because I'd cast out a lot of I was up on Kaz with Mankes, and I could have had to push for a win, or I had a draw locked up because it was my drive second half. And the story, and I probably misremembered what people were saying, but I thought a draw was going to be enough to kind of get a result in the first round against the Lithuanian national team, if you will, very strong Lithuanians. And my draw wasn't enough in that sense. But so I didn't play for myself.
Okay, so I'm hearing you prioritise your own draw over the team needing you to get a win.
No, not at all. I thought the draw was going to lock up the team win.
Yes.
And I didn't want to risk the loss because Manka's obviously an excellent coach.
Yep,
could easily return score and I would lose the match. Yeah. So I actually checked. And I found that was the first time I wasn't expecting to be sort of going down the line and checking how we were going. But I think the real highlights for me, there were 2 big highlights in Blood Bowl terms over the course of the 3 days. The first was the first team win. So 2 of our coaches had never played in a tabletop tournament in their lives. They were PlayStation coaches and very new PlayStation coaches. So we lost our first 2 rounds. Obviously, we lost to Mankes and a very strong Lithuanian side. And we squeaked a loss in the second round. I think it was against the Italians. Again, nice thing about the tournament was we ended up getting quite a mix of nationalities. I ended up personally getting quite a lot of different races. I only doubled up twice. I had 2 Zons and 2 Dells, but apart from that, everything else was unique, which was great. But the real highlight was our first win, which was round 3. And actually, our 2 new coaches who'd lost both their first rounds both won in the third round to bring us home on a win. And for me, that was my World Cup done. I was like, yes, we've done it. We've kind of got that win, and it was fantastic that it was the 2 coaches, new coaches that got us across the line. And then Matudor, who a Spanish chap who lives in Ireland, hadn't rolled dice and got him to go and meet Kalon to roll some dice. He was like, it'd be fine, I wouldn't roll dice. And I was like, you need to roll some dice. It's 9 games. It's going to take a lot of you. But he went 3-0-0 on the second day and was suddenly just become an absolute rock in our team.
And he met Kalon and still wanted to come.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, so you knew he was someone of quality, someone that could put up with adversity and come through the other end.
And then the other big highlight was actually playing against Team Fumble and Mina and Co and Thulian. So it was it felt like the battle of the platforms, if you will. Who will rise to the top? And again, that ended up in an honourable and probably diplomatic draw, if you will. But what was really cool about that was I actually lost my match, and the team actually brought it home because I was obviously largely our board one, if you will. So I was really proud that we kind of got that draw, and I hadn't contributed at all, which was fantastic. And I think it kind of showed that the team. I don't think any of my other guys had played in the team competition. I played at UKTC this year for the first time, and I really loved the team format. So it was really cool to see a team result where the team had performed, and so those were my big highlights.
That was we had a slightly similar thing on ours. We had one of our guys described himself as a painter, not a player, really. And about a couple of weeks before, he was apparently having a crisis about should he even come. Was he going to weigh the team down? And we had a variety of us were board one throughout the weekend. But he was board one for us throughout the entire of the third day. He really got the results in of the entire team, which was both fabulous for him on a confidence level, but also really nice to see that someone that was having that doubt actually was, the mainstay of the team, which can happen to anyone.
For sure.
That's coaching undead.
So the team, for me, is sorry, just to say,
ended up happy.
I'd never been to a team tournament. I've only ever been to one tournament before, and that was another highlight as well. Was like how it all can come down to one game, and we actually weren't letting our coach know that it was down to his result because we didn't want them to kind of freak out or whatever. We just kind of watched their not even behind the shoulders, but keeping an interest. But that was really nice. It being a team event, I really enjoyed that.
It's like the Ryder Cup, which is on at the moment. It is a very different thing, a singles event and a team event. And I've yet to find anyone that goes to a team event and doesn't come away and go, oh no, that was fabulous, I want to do more of that.
100%.
It's a really nice way to play Blood Bowl. To have people that at the end of the game, when you're whining about your dice, have to pretend to care because they need you to be ready for the next game. I find that invaluable. I think that's certainly something I need. Mina, I want to throw this question around and then we'll obviously bring everyone back in as well. But what were you coaching? How'd it go? And what are your big takeaways?
So I was coaching lizards. Lizard men and what was it? Sorry, what did I take?
How'd it go?
How'd it go? Well, I came out with sadly an overall negative score, as it were, myself. I see it as I assisted. We got the best Amazon coach. Liam did very well, and I think. I joked to him saying, look, I've helped you, because I brought you down to the lower table so you have an easier person.
So by you getting bad results, he's got easier games. Fantastic.
He won most of his. I think he had one loss.
Yeah.
He had one loss. Did he have a draw? I think he may have had a draw. I'm not sure.
I think he might have been 8-1-0 or
8-0-1.
Yeah, and won best Amazons in the world.
Something like So no, really, really good. What I take from the whole thing, loved it. Loved the whole team thing. I loved the whole team camaraderie. I've had this before. We're not necessarily Blood Bowl, but before had a children and going in teams, even multi-system team tournaments. And again, it's just really good fun, like to go and it's not just you have your own record of what you've done, but also as a part of the team. And I remember what I have fond memories of Alicante with one of the games. Only won 2 games, I'm afraid, the whole 9 games. But one of the first win, and the first win, they I think one of our team lost their game, and the rest all drew. And thankfully, nobody came to me to say, you know what, Mina, you have to bloody win to get a draw overall. No one said that to me, which is very nice of them.
Yeah.
So, and then I think in the end, Alex came over and he said, "How's it gone?" I said, "Well, it looks like I'm going to win." I think you should be okay. I think we're fine. And he's like, and he didn't go, "Oh, phew, Mina," or anything like that. He was like.
It's one of the odd things. I mean, he was captain of the other Fumble squad. I was captain of there were 2 sides. He did one, I did the other half, and he was a bit worried about it. You do get to learn quite quickly if there's a team. Who do I tell what we need and who do I maybe not? We had one guy on our team who, sorry, my son going to bed. One person on our team who, for one day particularly, really you didn't need to tell them what was going on, and they weren't going to tell you how their game was going. You just needed to leave them alone, let them roll.
Leave them alone, yes.
And then someone else who really needed, an arm around the shoulder and you're doing great. If you can just nail this draw, that's all we need. And then how you help them is really interesting.
I actually prefer just to be left alone because I mean, it's whatever's going to happen. I'm going to
Yeah.
still try regardless. Even when I was 2-0 down and my Crocs had the ball, and the previous game that the Crocs caught the ball, it was then my turn and he rolled a 1. He just stared at the ball, and then obviously someone hit him and the ball was popped out. And the next game that the Crocs had the ball, I thought, oh my god, this is ridiculous. I mean, and then again, obviously he boneheaded and stood there. I cleared a path for him. Yeah, I cleared a path for him to walk. He just had to walk, and that was it. And he stared at the ball again, and I thought, I bet he's going to stare at the ball. Yep, he's going to stare at the ball. So then I had to obviously another turn, and then I had to clear the path again, making that part the sea of players. And he did then walk along. I scored with the Crocs, and that was to make it 2-1. I mean, still crap. I still
Look,
lost anyway, but you know,
A Crocs touchdown is a thing of glory whenever it happens,
it
surely.
is a thing of glory. And I thought, and then on turn 7, and I did contemplate if it was not a Crocs, I would have contemplating sitting a square out in the end zone, but he may bonehead
Yeah,
on me
careful of that. I mean, how
on
mine went, I
turn
was also
15.
coaching Dark Elves because it's the only race I've got.
That sounds like a fib, PC.
And I've been doing it for about 18 months. I've done a lot of Dark Elfing. And weirdly, I only know because Andy Davo lied, as he's wont to do, and shamelessly puffed one of his YouTube videos when I did a practice game against him, claiming I was a top 50 in the world coach. And I'm not. So I went and had a look on the NAF site, and sure enough, I wasn't. I was 52, which really amazed me. And then actually another set of tournament results arrived, and I briefly, although it's now been sorted out, don't worry, I briefly popped up to 39th in the world,
Ooh.
which is amazeballs. I don't normally look at it, but I did because of the Andy Davo thing. So our squad was massively overrated in Sans ratings because of my ludicrous rating. And don't worry, we normalised that at the World Cup. Turns out I hadn't lost a game of Dark Elves in 18 months. I'd got something like 22
Wow.
wins and 5 draws. I have now lost some games with Dark Elves, plenty. So I think I did 5-1-3, which on 3 hours sleep I think was all right. I had a game against in the first day. The first person I played was the NAF organizer for London and the South East, who's at just about every tournament I go to. The second person I played was Salty McCut, the person who I gave the dice to, who again I've played 3 times in the last 6 months, and I play at just about every tournament I go to. So by game 3, I was just so pleased that it was a Spanish person opposite me. And from then on, things did get a lot more mixed up, except game 5, I rolled into Andy Davo, who I really nearly beat in that practice game on Fumble pre coming to the World Cup. So I went into it with good spirits, but I tried to stall up in turn 6 when I really shouldn't have done it. It was a bit too risky. I needed a 3+ to work, and it didn't. So of course he surfed me because he's Andy Davo and he's very good at Blood Bowl. And in the second half, I nearly stopped him, but he had a re-roll as 3+ to pick up and score, and he managed it, so he beat me. He was probably the best player I played at Blood Bowl. It was the most fun I had playing, despite it's someone that I know well and play well. But yeah, I completely cocked up a stall, and it cost me, and I didn't play my best Blood Bowl, particularly day 2, I think. And maybe if I go to another World Cup, I will try and average more than 3 hours sleep and bring slightly more focus on the Blood Bowl. But I was having such a good time at the event that actually, whilst I was a bit grumpy day 2, I think that was also lack of sleep and just, wow-ness. Because I had some
I
really
like.
tough dice game 4.
Yeah.
And I got over it. So, yeah, I had a great time. My big takeaway from the World Cup was sleep more, party less. I'm not 31, I'm 51. So I should have
Oh,
perhaps thought about that a bit more.
I think
Um,
you've got that wrong.
all right, well,
Like half
maybe
the
not. But I
people.
mean, I did have a cracking
yeah,
time.
no, party.
But someone did give me an offer that would I like to go to a team tournament, and actually try hard. And I don't know that that's me. So I'm sort of thinking about that. Do I want to go and try hard, or do I enjoy just getting drunk, vaguely underrepresenting myself and having a good laugh? And I kind of think it's that one. I kind of think that's what I want from Blood Bowl. I mean, I'm not uncompetitive like yourself, Jock. I've never sat at a table and not tried hard to win that game in front of me. And I don't think
Yeah.
anyone sits opposite me and thinks, oh, this is going to be an easy game of Blood Bowl. But I'm not kidding myself, I'm up at the very top level. That's my big takeaway. And that, like I said, we are going to try and do another episode that looks into the stats and the meta of the World Cup. But obviously it takes some time for all of that data to feed through. And I wanted to just talk to some people about it first. It did occur to me that up at the very top end, as you said with the Lithuanians, I'd always thought from the UKTC there's sort of 5 or 6 really good teams in Europe that absolutely know their business and are absolute experts at Team Blood Bowl. of which England has one, all the President's Men, who formed the backbone of Team England for 10 years. But France has about 3 or 4, Italy has some, Spain has some. I don't think it's 4 or 5 anymore. From the World Cup, I think it might be 30. I think Poland's got one, I think Lithuania's got one, I think most of the Scandinavian nations have them. I think there are a lot of people playing a level of hyper-aggressive, team-based Blood Bowl that's at a level I'm not at. And I don't know many people that are reaching. And I think that's quite interesting. And that was my big takeaway, was that I really felt at times, I'm slightly outclassed here. I really don't know what I'm doing. And that's a fun place to be. So whether I want to sort that out or whether I just want to go and get pissed next time, I don't know. We'll see.
I'll tell you what my answer is. I'd get pissed.
And as I said to someone,
actually
someone on your team, and I think you know who it was, who did that terrible thing of falling in with the Irish. Now, I love the Irish. I had a great time with the Irish. As Jock and McNaughton will tell you, I'm beloved by the Scots, weirdly, or the Scotch, as I would tend to call them. Only ironically, and if you've ever seen Stuart Lee, you'll know why. The Irish, me and Long been friends as well, and I'm sensible enough to love the Irish, to enjoy spending time with the Irish, but to not try and match the Irish for their drinking. And a member of the other team Fumble did decide that when the Irish decided at 10 a.m. was a perfect time for their first round, that he would join in. That day he got absolutely shit-faced. And that was by about 4 o'clock. That was well before the final game of the day, let alone that evening, when he was proper mortal. At least I was sensible enough not to do that. Don't drink with the Irish. You heard it here first.
I think I may have offended Kalon because he offered me out for a drink, and I the little angel on my shoulder sort of had me swearing for the fork in the road that said, "Go home to your wife and be a good husband."
Lovely people. You couldn't want for better company. You definitely couldn't want for better company. I loved being around them at the World Cup. I'm not matching them drink for drink. I don't have that training.
No.
Nice?
I mean, I didn't drink in the day. I did keep that drinking part to the evening. I did recall on the Wednesday getting so drunk that I remember saying to Doug Lowe, who sat next to me, I said, and it suddenly hit me. It's like I was merry, I was fine, it was all fine. And suddenly, I don't know if it's the heat or what, but I suddenly was really very drunk, very, very, very drunk. And I remember saying to Doug, I'm so drunk. I'm so drunk. And I was like, practically like when you're sort of going and falling asleep. And I had a sangria, and he just took the sangria and gave me a glass of water.
I played a lovely coach in Game 9
yes.
who, I mean, I don't know if he was drunk, but I was trying super hard Game 9 because if I won it, I was going to be above the 50% and finish 5-1.
Oh, I won
if
Game
I lost
9.
it, it would have been 4-1-4. I'd have been 50%. I'd still have been all right with 50%, but I do love to get over the 50%. So I was trying to get at least a draw in Game 9. The guy opposite me just wanted it over. He just wanted to go home. He was done. And I think so. There's one lesson if you go to a 9-game event: have the stamina. Don't worry about day 1, but by day 3, make sure you're on it because some other people won't be.
I felt like that by game 9, and we came up against a squad. It's funny actually. We didn't play a single British squad. All the teams we played were Spanish, Dutch, German, and American, and the highest we got was table 42, and we were up against the guys that do the American podcast, and
that's
quite
fine.
funny.
Just talk about other podcasts on my show. Why not?
Sorry. And in that game, the table actually collapsed at one point, and we all managed to keep the table from falling over. And like everyone was like, grab the table, because it started coming down. Like, what would we have done? What we would have called the ref? Like, how would we resolve that situation? Because we had 2 tables on it. But getting back to the point, game 9, I was totally.
Before you do, how hard were people slamming their dice cups?
This is on game 9,
Okay.
and on that.
On the broken table. Was that what broke the table? The slamming of the dice cups?
It was my teammate's bag. As he actually pulled his bag, it was trapped on the chair leg.
Oh no!
As he went to pick up his bag or get his drink out, the folding tables that they were.
It started to fold.
It started to fold, and then everything slipped down. I grabbed the beers so it didn't destroy everyone's models, and ruin their paint job on their models, and then everyone else.
Beer.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Is that why you grabbed the beer?
I've got the beer. I don't know what's going on with the games.
I was thinking about them just spilling over everyone's full of it, and we didn't want to spill the beer. And then the others like grabbed the table, but so the game got to play on. But I don't know what we would have done if we didn't all react. But everyone was like a ninja. It was hilarious, like how quick everyone's reactions were. But then by game 9, we came up against it should have been called Team Dice Cup Smash or whatever. But it was just like the nails in my coffin, like literally sitting there and 6 people opposite me, all shush, and it was just I was so like done by that point. And what I found interesting, because I haven't been to many tournaments, is, and I've seen it on your podcast, PC, is the conversations about how to roll dice.
Yes.
So I'm a filthy hand roller until I get my fumble.
I'd never have invited you on if I knew.
I would have got my.
No.
I wouldn't have been a hand roller at the World Cup if I'd got my dice cup. But
it's in the post. It should be with you Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. But yeah, like I just didn't really realise the etiquette that exists at kind of tournaments when it comes to like rolling dice. I just thought, surely freedom of rolling your dice how you please, like
No.
I didn't realise.
And if it's at this angle, it is cocked, and I will re-roll it. But if it is at this angle, I will not.
Yeah, so that was very new to me. Having played in like leagues and casual tabletop games, people, you can clearly see it's a PAL, but to like come up against some opponents that were just like, no, that's not 100% flat, please re-roll it, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah. No, I always thought I've got this beast. I went to a Sevens event at Warhammer World, and I'd forgotten my dice cup, so I bought a Bugman's official dice cup. Lovely thing of leather, but it's got a little wooden bit down the bottom. And when you shake a dice in it, it does sound a lot like the sort of coming of the death of everything. So I prefer nice soft leather cups. But actually, whilst I've now forgiven this cup, because the sound of an aggressive shake, even in a wooden bottomed cup, is as nothing compared to the slamming of some cups that some coaches do. Now I can be maybe once or twice a game I might slam at a key moment, but not every single cup. Come on, every single dice you roll.
I had one of the captains told off his squad member for slamming the cup because it was even bouncing his models on the game a game next to us. So he was telling off his own squad member, "Calm down. Why are you hitting the cup so hard?"
I mean, I'm not saying we need a full set of rules around this, but everyone should have a tray, they should have a dice cup, and you should roll it in there, or else you should just be removed from the tournament and never invited back. I'm very reasonable about that. Okay, so... Well, where are we? We went to the tournament. What didn't we like? What could they improve on? Jock, you've got a big list of this, haven't you? I think... Wow. Am I alone in saying that I think it was...
I have a list.
Alicante was great. It was a really successful, good event, well run. I want to offer nothing but props and respect to the people that ran it. I couldn't do it, and that was amazeballs.
Yeah.
But there's always things you can do better. Now, for me, it's don't try and stall against Andy Davo when he's got plenty of frenzy pieces. Try and do that better. And don't average 3 hours sleep a night. But what could the makers of the next World Cup learn and do better than has been done this time round? I'm slightly padding this question because the people that are with us live on Twitch are currently on an ad break.
Okay.
So let's give them a couple of seconds thinking time whilst the ad break finishes, and they should be back more or less now. Jock, I know you've got a big list. Let's start with you, and then we'll see what we can add in. What could have been better than was done in Alicante?
Before I kind of launch into the sort of tirade of what was wrong, I echo your sentiments. I have nothing but absolute praise for the team. I come away from the World Cup having an absolutely brilliant time. I think another person that deserves a shout out was Boccaccio. He acted as an outrider for the organising team and was sort of smoothing things over in Discord. He's in fact put together a survey and he's just published the results. I've just shared a link in chat that if anybody's interested, that will give people a sense of what coaches thought about, and not just obviously what we think, but actually gives you a nice round of view. But yeah, I mean, I've had an event business. I've run big events where 12,500 people have rocked up. I've done a helivac by sat phone from Everest Base Camp. So when I went, I obviously looked with a professional eye at what was going on. And rather than sort of going through a myriad of lists, I think sort of big thematic things for me was communication was just ultimately passive, not timely, So if you look at things like the buses not being released until 1:30, and I suspect that was because they were trying to figure out where's the best place to have the bus stop, rather than saying which bus stop do you like. But even in the hall, when they were kind of using the PA system, I never heard or understood a single word the entire time, and actually could have easily been backed up with, well, one, obviously a better PA system, but someone on a comms role just publishing on Discord these messages that were coming across so people could read what was going on. And likewise, in round one, there was, to be expected, a teething problem of not all the results were in, and it actually cut right across and beyond an hour and 45 lunch hour. But not once did they kind of say on the captain's Discord channel, hey, we're looking for X, Y, and Z, can anybody help? And they failed to kind of crowdsource and use the resource of the coaches that were around them, who would have happily said, oh, I know where he is, I'm stood next to him, or her, we can get that result.
They did
so
urgently need to be, at the very least, a Twitter feed.
Yeah,
it's one way, it just sends things out and we can all receive it. That they're not trying to process information.
For me, communication was critical. Even things like, if you looked at the website, if I was a vendor/sponsor, I wouldn't have been too pleased with the fact that it was about 3 days before the World Cup that page got updated and the links to the vendor page were broken. And it's kind of, for me, communications per se was just haphazard, and actually it was just the easy, relaxed nature of all the coaches involved, including the coaches playing, that kind of allowed this event to just keep trucking along in that sense, in a very relaxed way.
I think after the horror stories of Dornbirn, people were girded for possibly terrible things to happen.
Yeah.
And while some of it was annoying, none of it was terrible.
No one thing was going to, no one issue that I had with it was going to stop the show. But collectively, it could have, like, for example, the lunch tickets. They had us queuing to get lunch tickets when they could have just gone in the welcome bag. Meat queue here, veg queue here, and if you've got special diet requirements, go to information. And so that leads to the other big theme for me, which was throughput. I don't think there was much sort of conscious thought on throughput of what is it you have to do to deal with 2,500 people to go through a lunch crew, to go through a door, to get a bus. And so I think for the next hosts, I think they have to think about how do they manage that throughput in all senses of the word. Even things like the bars that they agreed, deals. Again, I felt like they kind of missed a commercial kind of opportunity. I mean, if it was me, I would have been king of Alicante. I would have had so many bars ready to offer so many things. And it felt that,
as we all know, it was Andy Davo that was king of Alicante.
Well, for 10 years he was. So I think throughput was the other big thing for me. And then I think the missed opportunity out of the World Cup was ultimately the lack of engagement with the world. Unironically, with the World Cup, they didn't actually engage with anybody out there in the world. No one who was interested remotely, who wasn't in Alicante, could find out what was going on. And I think in these times with social media, Twitch, so on and so forth, the medium we're on currently, I think people were clamoring to find out what was going on.
Absolutely.
And then,
I mean, I mocked together. I haven't actually got it to pull up now, but I'm not going to grab it. I did think about it when you started this. I actually mocked up how I think it should be streamed. I think there should be a couple of tables streamed. I think half the screen should show the live feed from the table. The other half should show either a fumble or a Blood Bowl pusher electronic version of the same board so that you can work out where all the pieces are. Then it doesn't matter what the camera angle is. You can actually see on the electronic side exactly what's going on that board. And then you have a couple of commentators, and then you have a social media feed down the bottom. And it looks like a professional streaming job. It looks like somebody streaming chess or something. And we've never really had that in Blood Bowl.
Even interviews post rounds, like interviewing an Andy Davo or Olivier Dulac, people want to hear from them.
I mean, I hear Game 5, Andy Davo ran into a lesser known streamer. That would have been interesting afterwards to see what they both thought of that game.
Well, for sure. What were the tables right at the top? Because I saw like a sign saying set up for streaming, and they had like some kind of camera. But
there was a bit of streaming. From what I heard from Dimmy G, actually watching it back in the UK, it wasn't multilingual. It wasn't very clear what was going on, and hence I think it was a bit of a wasted opportunity there. But I've never seen Blood Bowl streamed well. It's a 2.5 hour game, for goodness sake. You need someone that can keep that entertaining. You need to understand what's going on. And I've never had either of those things, frankly. But
And would the NAF be looking into like supporting on streaming or anything like
it's
that with
had it
like NAF
before.
council
NAF Championships
games?
have had a couple of streamed tables before and some good commentators on it. But again, it's about how do you make it televisual? Because these little figures can be, as we've seen with Blood Bowl 3, when you actually get realistic figures on a top-down view, kind of hard to tell what's what. Which is why my version would have half the screen with that and half the screen with an electronic version of the board showing you exactly what's where.
Yeah.
And I think
I
people would
don't know if
find
you
that
saw
much
it.
easier to watch.
Don't know if you saw on Twitter, there was a tweet today about a Blood Bowl pitch had been made for a blind person, which was fantastic. I've got a blind chess set.
Wow.
And if you're kind of building it in that kind of way, I imagine it's a bit of a project, but it wouldn't be too much from an electronic point of view to look at trying to sort of monitor the board, as you say, to kind of give you that dual view.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've seen an
Yeah.
experiment with some people doing one with a very, very green pitch.
Yeah.
Almost bright green with just the squares on it. And the camera picks up the figures on that much, much better. So when I say I've never seen it streamed well, I've seen lots of very good attempts at streaming it. I just think there's a whole nother level we could kick it up to. But it would require multiple graphics on the same screen, I think, to really make it work well. So I tend to agree about communication. But yeah, what else?
Yeah.
I think probably I'll open it up to the others in a sec, but I think the big question that it leads to is what is a viable amount of coaches? Should there be a capacity? And indeed, how do you mitigate the risk on the individuals who are just stepping up to run the World Cup? Because there's a lot of money on the table. There's probably a lot of startup fund that I don't know how the Spanish team did it, but I mean, absolute kudos to them. But I think if we're hoping and expecting to see the game grow as a community and obviously subsequent to the World Cup, that needs to be addressed in my mind. I think there has to be a physical capacity at some point, even just from the sense of can we get a venue to take these people?
Now, in my head, it's become a Fibonacci scale. That might be wrong. But someone described to me the maths of the World Cups, basically meaning that every World Cup has been the numbers have been the sum of the two World Cups before. So we had 900 and we had 500, so that led to 1400. 1400 and 900 led to 2300, which is more or less what we had this time. If that continued, we'd have 4,000 people at the next World Cup. Now, I think if it goes to America, that seems a little unlikely. They don't have the player base, I don't think, and I'm not sure enough Europeans would go over to make those numbers hold. I think if you held it in Nottingham, you could probably get 4,000.
Yeah.
Is that viable? Is that realistic? Or if not, is it just first come, first served? Or do you have to make a certain level to qualify for the World Cup? I mean, how would it... I mean, to me, it should be everyone that wants to come,
Ooh.
shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it has to be open to all, otherwise I wouldn't do that.
Okay, the three of us all think that. Jock, you disagree. I saw the shake of head.
I was like, no, I wouldn't place any restriction on who could come. I don't think it would be. I mean, whilst it's nice to have the idea of winning the World Cup as a team, I actually think the power of the World Cup is actually in the non-competitive tables, if you will, if you can dub it that way.
Yeah.
The World Cup's not about winning the World Cup. The World Cup's about actually getting everybody that loves Blood Bowl together and having a bloody good time every 4 years, period. In some ways, it's nice to say, oh, these guys won, but who cares? I mean, obviously, it's a nice thing to stick on your CV, I suppose.
The people that won cared quite a lot. I saw them.
They did care. They did care.
Yeah, I mean, no getting away from it. As you pointed out earlier, there's maybe 30 French teams. There's an English team in All the President's Men. There's maybe a few others running about the world from Ladonia or Andorra that could probably stick up a competitive team. But for me, it's not. And I say this as someone who likes to be, if you want to call me a try-hard, sure, I'll own it. But when I went to the World Cup, I just wasn't interested in that at all. And I don't think that's what the World Cup should be about. It should be, like the Spanish team re-emphasised over and again, a celebration of Blood Bowl.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, my proudest thing there, I did want to get over 50% personally. I don't agree with Lycos. An individual record can still exist within a team environment. But for me, it was all about I wanted to roll dice with my friend Krista. And I did, and that was fabulous. And I wouldn't change that for anything. I wouldn't change that for winning the World Cup. So that's a memory I will have for life. That man's had a huge impact on me and how I've loved my life in the last 20 years. So to stand beside him and roll dice was a very proud moment and one I would happily do again. Mina, you've said there's some things that you would see improved. Is one of them... I don't even really want to ask this, but I'm going to. There was a discussion in the NAF Discord the other day about women in Blood Bowl and why we don't get more at the tournaments. By the other day, I mean literally yesterday or the day before. And all the usual reasons were cited. There's not enough safe spaces, and it doesn't feel somewhere that's welcoming to women. And you walk in, you're the only woman there. And someone mentioned childcare, and I said, well, hang on. As someone that helped raise my kids, it was an issue for me when I had young kids. I think childcare is a non-gendered issue. I think in the modern world we should say childcare is for everybody, but it is still the case. I think that more women do childcare than men. I think that's fair.
I
Is
think so. I
childcare a
think,
big
yeah.
problem? Was the lack of childcare at the
So,
World Cup bothering you?
I
And
mean,
is it a thing we should look into trying to do?
I think there is um, something to be done there because I mean, before I went, so I was going for a week. It's the longest I've left my children
Hmm.
for, and my husband did have concerns. I mean, he wasn't going to stop me going. He wanted me to go. Nothing, like that. But and they're not babies. They're like 10 and 14. But he said that it is easier when I'm at home, and it's noticeably harder when I'm not there. He asked me if it's the same the other way around. I can't say it is, but it's
It's
different when my
completely
husband's
irrelevant
not
whether
there.
you're here or not, my
Um,
love. Um,
no, it's different. It's different, but I can't say it's necessarily harder. But
okay.
for him, it is harder.
Yeah.
And so he was sort of dreading the idea of a week. I've gone away for a weekend before, but not a week. Now, so I know that I mean, and he's an involved daddy, yeah, that does do a lot. So I think where there are couples where, say, daddy's not as involved, they probably. And my husband did take the children to his mother's for a day,
Hmm.
at the weekend, and I think it's not uncommon. A lot of daddies will do that, but like I think it is one of the factors that will reduce it. I don't think it's as big as the factor because a lot of the women that went don't. A lot of them don't have children, and I think what I don't. I mean, obviously, to me, it doesn't matter. But to go to a tournament and you're the only woman there, is common
Hmm.
for me. It's happened lots and lots and lots of times, and I'm quite surprised if I'm not the only woman there, to be honest. And I'm glad I'm not the only woman there as well. I mean, I enjoy them regardless. I enjoy the tournaments anyway. But it is one where you've got to feel comfortable in a room full of men. And I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's getting better. I have to say, it's a lot better from when I first started. I remember going to tournaments and people having inappropriate things, shall we say, uh, you know, Playboy cards, models of a certain type. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I remember those days. Those days are thankfully not now.
I
And
see a
I
lot
feel like
less
there's a
Amazons
lot
in
now.
underwear, and I'm
Yeah.
pleased.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's also now, which is really good, a lot of men that actually want to see more women
Yeah.
play, right? So there's a lot of that now, which there wasn't. There's a lot of indifference, which I mean, I don't
Yeah.
really blame the indifference. Kind of, this is, and there was a lot of sorts of people who um, wouldn't, would not put any effort in trying to be a bit, I don't know, a bit less lokish. I mean, I don't really mind, but like, when people go overboard with like the type of cards they've got and things like that, it's like, you're making it actually uncomfortable. And I'm someone who's very tolerant. It takes a
Yeah.
lot to offend me, but like there were, I remember going to those and I thought, oh, and I thought that's a bit of a shame. Now I knew that some of the people who were playing, and I knew they weren't like that, for example. So I remember meeting Alex Wormall. I must have been, I don't know, well, before the kids, a few years before the kids. And, I remember he's a very sound individual. And so I've known him quite a long time now. I've known obviously Barney for a very long time. And it's a case of, I knew that there were enough people. I felt fine being there because I knew enough people. And going to the World Cup this time, I have to say what was really nice was in that room there were a load of people that I knew, that I
Yeah.
recognised
Yeah.
from tournaments, from before I had the children, since I've had since I returned after having the children. So there was a lot of people that I did know there. So that was super
So I
nice.
think that's
But
on
yeah, I
us
think we have an
as the men
issue
in
with.
charge of that space. I mean,
Yeah, it's
not in
kind of need
charge
to
of as in
basically
owning it,
making,
but
yeah,
it's a
it's
male space
making
right
it
now.
more,
Yeah.
yeah. And the problem is making it actually, when women do come to play, and you shouldn't have to do this really. Like it should just be you can just be yourselves, and and not as long be ridiculous. No, don't be obviously assholes, but be fine. But I think to make that step to be a bit more welcoming would probably be a good idea. If people have other halves friends that like board games, it's a board game at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
reason why women shouldn't play it or shouldn't like to play it. So I would like to see that. The difficulty we've got is like we went to the World Cup and the 2,300-ish people there, 2,200 and whatever, and there weren't more than 20 women playing. There were less than 20 in the whole room.
Yeah. So Dimmy
My
G's
husband
experience of
asked me, like,
24 tabletop games, he's played 6 women. Or 4 women. That's
I mean,
very unusual.
the last World Cup, I did actually play against a woman, and somebody actually came to take a photo because it's properly rare in Dortmund, and I didn't play a woman this time. But my husband asked me, Dave asked how many women were there, and I said like 15 or less, and he's like, out of like practically 2,500. I was like, yeah,
I
like
think
it's
I
really
think there
really
were
low.
as many helping organise it as were actually playing. Yeah.
Yeah,
In
it was
in that
very, very, very low.
Chicken.
that conversation with NAF, there's a lot of how to get more women into the game, and I think the point you just said about it, at the end of the day, it's a board game, and anyone can play a
Yeah.
board game, and we have board game nights, and I've tried played Blood Bowl with my wife, and it's I don't know, I just don't get how if it's a board game, it's just I
It,
don't see where
I
this
mean, it
idea of
has
like
been
the boys'
traditionally a
We
toys
very
thing.
a
also,
very
hang on, hang
male
on.
space. Back in the 80s when it started,
We, yeah,
there was a lot of very racist joking in there, but there was already a lot of sexist imagery. When they got rid of
yeah,
the racism, it was replaced by
loads.
loads of sexism. And then that's been sort of wheedled out, and now there'll be no problem at all with
Wheedling
the
out, nice.
current one, which is alcohol has replaced both of those as the current funny thing, which will definitely age fine
Yeah.
and won't be a problem in the future at all. So it did come from that very sexist space, and I wrote a blog sort of about 15 years ago on Fumble saying, I'm really tired of seeing Amazons in underwear. That's not appropriate. Firstly, just for
Yeah,
anyone
yeah,
to watch.
Mm,
Secondly, it's not
mm.
real as to who would be playing this sort of a sport. I mean, I remember Fatima Whitbread,
yeah,
the Olympic javelin thrower. There was a woman that could play Blood Bowl. You're not going to see her in some skimpies doing it, though. That just wouldn't be realistic. So I just thought, why is this? Why is this part of this? They don't belong
yeah.
together, and I think we need to get over that. And as men,
We've
if we want to
well,
see a
one
more
more. I've
diverse
got one more thing.
environment, we're the majority at the moment.
Yeah.
We need to create it. We need to create an environment that is more friendly to a diverse player base. But I don't just want to talk
Yeah.
about that. But I did want to throw it at you as it came up
But
recently and
there's
as
one more thing
you're here.
I'll
So yeah,
add.
just as a coach.
Yeah, PC. I'll add one more thing, and this is this is where we are, where when my husband goes to a tournament, and well, when I went to Dornbirn, someone asked me, well, why hasn't Dave come instead? And I was like, well, why couldn't I come? And and we've had, and it's been said to him when he goes to UKTC, that's his one, as it were, and I have the kids, and he's been, he was told, oh, so you got your wife to play the game, and he's like, no, actually, it's her game. It was her game first, and he
Yeah.
corrects it. He always corrects it. He never lets the false thing carry on. But and he says, no, actually, I came to it after my wife, to saying, well, it was the other way around. But everybody makes that assumption. And if I'm at a tournament, I've had it a few times of why haven't I let Dave go?
Yeah. I mean, it is
Why
very.
haven't I let Dave? And I'm like, well, we have to divide. And I say to the person, we have to share the tournaments out because we both play, right? And we have kids, right? So we shared them out. He goes to UKTC. I've gone to the NAF champs a couple of times. We share these things out. So which ones we go to. And he also goes and plays the Saga, a different game. But the Blood Bowl ones, we shared them out. So it's never like I've got no, I want it and you're not going. I mean, I
Is
wouldn't be
is
still
that a
married
reasonable
to him if it
assumption though?
was like
Given
that.
given the topography of who goes to Blood Bowl, isn't it reasonable for someone to walk up to Dave and go, "Oh, I'm really jealous. You've got your wife and kids playing, mate." Is that reasonable, or is that an assumption we need to stop making?
Well, I think it's an assumption that is he doesn't find it comfortable
Yeah.
because he then has to correct them. and at least he does think like, well, if they say that to me,
Yeah.
it must be annoying, and it is annoying, because why are they assuming? And it's only the people who know me from before I had the children that know that it wasn't. It was the other way round, right? They're the only people like Fire Ollie. He knows because he knows me from before I think either of us had our kids, and our families, and but only people like that know. The other people, they just like the people, like say, all the people that come to the game in the intervening years,
Hmm.
which are loads of people. They assume it's the other way around, and I just think it's a real shame. But how about don't make an assumption?
Yeah.
You don't need to assume which way round it was. You could just
Ask.
either ask.
Yeah. So which one
You
have you
could
gone to
ask the
Blood Bowl
question
first?
if you
It's an
want.
easy,
Yeah, yeah,
open-ended question without
easy. Yeah.
prejudice within it.
Why make it? Yeah, this is where we are
So what
now.
else have we
People
got?
don't mean any harm in it, but
Yes,
they
but
do effectively cause
they're
harm.
causing it within their micro assumptions, aren't they?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
so important that we try and recognise those. But putting gender to aside, because we talked about this before the
mm,
stream. You don't just, none of us want to be Malcolm
yeah,
X in Blood Bowl. As well
yeah,
as all your issues, you are a Blood Bowl coach. Most importantly,
yes.
as a Blood Bowl coach, what else from the World Cup do you think could have been tweaked for the better?
I would say I felt sorry for all the people in the meat queue, shall we call it,
Yeah,
food queue. I felt like they should have had a couple of queues, a lot of like communication, like Jock was saying. The like, why was there no sign to say this is like for the vegetarian and dietary requirement people, and then here is the meat queue, as it were, maybe, and have a couple of queues. Especially, what was so frustrating was that last day
yeah.
on the Sunday, there was no reason to have
A 1 hour queue
such a
for a sandwich.
ridiculous. Yeah, I was like, they had the sandwiches all laid out on the table. You know what? Why didn't you have two queues? Easy, easy.
Even
Like,
four.
it could have gone twice as
4.
fast
See,
for the
Jock
love of
setting the standard
crikey.
high here. There's a man with experience in the field. He won't settle for 2 when
No,
4 could be done.
well, I know, but the point is that in that room you could have had the queues don't go. You could have had it go faster,
Yeah.
and it was slow. I would say that would have shortened lunch times. It wouldn't have gone on for so bloody long, and then the gap between the second and the third game, again, you didn't need. It could have been shorter, and we could have finished earlier because we were finishing like 8:30 or whatever. Then you got to gather all your people, get out, get the bloody bus, and by the time you got back to Alicante, it's like on Sunday the only food around was the flipping Burger King and the bloody McDonald's, which,
Yeah.
by the way, they don't cater for vegetarians really. So it's
If
a bit of
if
a
you've been
problem.
out with
Yeah.
us, we had a beautiful Spanish restaurant near us that was still serving, and we were there till 1:30. It was
Oh,
great. But we were
I think
slightly out of the
oh
centre of
wow.
Alicante.
I think you raise a point there. It's quite interesting, Mina, in that the closing ceremony where all the awards were. Again, if you stayed, you wouldn't hear who won anything. But because the round finished so late, a lot of people were like, "Right, we're off for the bus. See you,
Yeah,
bye."
yeah,
And so actually, that sort of camaraderie that had been built up over these few days, from the Wednesday all the way through to the Sunday, was instantly just lost in a
yeah.
sense.
I missed my
When
friend Core getting best slan player,
yeah,
which
Yeah.
is a shame. That would have been nice to see. Um,
I mean, I guess I suppose
Chicken,
Oh, the other
I
one,
will
one
come
other
to you
thing.
on this, but
Oh,
there's just a couple that I want to touch on. One actually comes back
yeah.
to what we said about the pier, which is I thought there were just some missed opportunities for drama. I'm a big lover of the drama.
mm,
I would have ended the pier thing with pressing a button that sent the draw out live, and you'd have seen 3,000 nerds look at their phone really quickly. And I think that would have given it that moment on that Thursday that was, here we go, we start, bang, now. And I think it
Yeah.
needed something like that. It just drifted a bit. It was impressive seeing all those people there, but it just drifted into a morass of nothingness. I also, and this won't shock anyone, I think they needed someone with a good, clear voice. Um, and ideally, they
Yeah.
needed one in Spanish and one in English, because English is the international language of Blood Bowl, and Spanish being the host nation. I think you needed two presenters or someone that can do both, and need to have a good, clear voice that can command 2,400 people with a PA system. And they didn't.
someone with Shakespearean background,
I
perhaps.
mean, I would have personally, if Andy Davo was busy, then yes, you could have asked somebody else. But obviously, someone of the fame level of Andy Davo would have just given everyone that little added reason to listen to the great man himself. The final thing for me, of course, was the welcome packs. I mean, I do love a freebie, but my goodness, did we get an enormous amount of them. I mean, we got a hat, we got a lanyard, we got a pitch, we got
I like the
this,
pitch.
whatever this is. Now, I was sensible
What?
enough. I'm too old to put this on my wrist,
Oh, I
but
put it
but
on.
people put them on their wrists, and I saw people literally soaring at their wrist to get that thing off. I swear in Alicante, there's half a dozen Blood Bowlers left hands with one of those tags still on it, just stuck to a railing somewhere, because those things did not come off. So I'm going to torture one of my children with this one day. I'm going to put it on and then say, you get it off then. Yeah. I just thought there was maybe a tiny, tiny bit too much given away. I mean, the dice were nice, the pitch was nice, the Mino was nice. And then there's 8 other things as well, and I didn't quite understand why.
Oh, the big coin. What the do that big coin?
Yeah.
Someone tell me.
I blame the
was so
NAF. They
baffled.
started that. They gave us a big coin one year that no one knew what it was for, and now big coins seem to be everywhere. I don't need big coins, but there we are.
Yeah.
But you say that, but
I've
you're
got
in
one
Vantage
thing to- I've
years,
got
and
something
you
to say.
you might need to be able to see the coins at face.
Thank
Maybe
you.
a big coin might come in useful at some point.
Thank you. Yes. It's not always affordable to get new sets of glasses every year. The minute you put reading glasses on, your eyes just give up. They just go. They no, we're done now. And every year you're after new bloody glasses.
So PC.
Yes.
PC. The other thing was, like, as much as we're saying these are things that could done better, I went to Dornbirn,
Yeah.
and I have to say that it was so much better than Dornbirn. Right, the venue, where it was. I mean, I know Dornbirn. I feel sorry for them; they haven't got the weather, but like, the fact it was a beach place, it was that was all very good. The buses, I think actually did well. Right, I think the bus thing did well. I think that all that part I thought did well. I think that the fact that the games all ran on the days they were meant to run.
Yes.
We didn't have this stupid queue. We did have a stupid queue, by the way,
We did.
in Dornbirn to have these little skill things. It was such a stupid idea, and I'm glad they actually sacked that off and were like, you know what? It's up to you to flip and make it clear on your models and sort it out with your opponent, and it worked. And I'm glad they went with that approach. There were a number of things they did improve on and learn from last time. So I have to say, credit to the people, and they had even more bloody people.
I want to focus on one of those a bit. I mean, none of us were there, but from what I've heard, in Dornbirn also, a lot of people weren't staying in Dornbirn. People were staying in towns 20 miles away or 15 miles away. So there wasn't that community feel to it. Now, I was, incredibly lucky. I was there for a full week because, my partner took care of our kids and they didn't want to come. So I was there for the Wednesday, which was really nice. And even on the Wednesday, you could walk around Alicante in the evening. And every time you turned a corner in the main sort of touristy bar area, there were some Blood Bowlers sat. And you can tell, by the smell, by the beards, by the porches. I mean, just there's lots of ways you could tell. But you could tell. And, sometimes you'd go over and say hello if you knew them. Sometimes you wouldn't know them, but you'd just sort of, do a dice shake or go, oh, snakes, eh? And then go, yeah, snakes. And you're instant friends. And you may not even have a language in common, but just the fact that everyone was there made it a real community thing.
Yeah.
Thursday evening, that sort of peaked for me, with just the people in Alicante just having an evening and saying hello to every group of Blood Bowlers passing, and then out on that pier. So I enjoyed the pier, but it could have had just something to make it a bit more oomphy. And then it continued throughout the days of the tournament as well. And I thought that was really nice, that it felt like we were in Alicante. Not going to Alicante every day to do it, but that the whole of Blood Bowl was in Alicante for that weekend. And to me, that was a huge win. Chicken, I have promised to bring you in. What's your things to do better?
I think a lot of points have already been raised, and I kind of agree with all of them. But for me, the biggest was the food, and just I think there was just understaffed. It wasn't that there was a lack of options. There was a lot of different things. I personally didn't use any of the food tickets that were given to me for the free food because of the queue. So I went to the ramen place, which still had a queue, but it was that first morning before game one. I was absolutely starving because I hadn't got the bus, and I was in a hotel that didn't, I wasn't in a B&B where I could make my own food or anything, no kitchen, and it was just like two or three staff members at the main cafeteria. And the size of the venue, have realised how many people, or the organisers could have communicated how many people were coming. So like, and it wasn't like it was a Sunday, it was a
Yeah.
Friday. They could have the staff in to have more
Yeah.
people
And
to
you'd have thought
serve.
this is a professional venue that does this. Although someone has just
Yeah,
mentioned in the chat it was very well air conditioned. And I do agree, it was fantastically well air conditioned, which was great.
yeah, yeah.
But surely they must be used to having a couple of thousand people in there. That must be something they've done before.
Yeah, and so it was just that, and it was only two places, I think, before that game one, wasn't it? Because all
Yeah.
the other places were open at lunchtime, so
Yeah.
there was a lot of people that got that early bus that were hungry, hadn't had breakfast, and then I
Yeah,
think the
the
other
bar,
thing,
just as you went in, there was a bar on the right. They did do a cracking breakfast roll, I have to say.
I must have missed that. I went straight to the one at the bottom and waited for ages, and then I finally got a, baguette with like Parma ham in, which was drenched in olive oil. And if I have too much oil, it doesn't sit well in my stomach. And I
Yeah,
was like,
no,
ah,
I have problems
Yeah.
with oily food. There was
yeah,
also a
yeah.
distressing lack of bacon, but I do forgive Europeans that. I think we should have a
Um,
Danish World Cup solely for the amount of bacon that would be there.
and then the other thing I'd say was like what Jock touched on with the communication was that a lot of it was going through the Discord, or kind of felt a bit like
Yeah,
Chinese whispers through the Discord. But our squad captain and everyone, I was the only person that had Discord in our squad. They weren't Discord users, and they shouldn't have to be.
no,
And like you say, maybe Twitter or some other forum to help with kind of that ongoing comms throughout the tournament, because we were all waiting there after game one. We didn't know about, was it 6 squads or was there 10 squads that are waiting to
yeah,
confirm the
absolutely.
results for, and
Um,
and then that just like pushed the rest of the day out.
and obviously, I'm joking about Andy Davis. A man I value and trust and call a friend, and he's a lovely guy, and he's a fantastic streamer. And I mean, like every streamer, he is desperate for content. If they asked him and say Bigodin from France, and say Eludius from Spain, and get three of the prime nationalities, the prime languages that Blood Bowl is played in, and get them to do a video of, as a captain, here's how you register scores. Here's
Mm.
what this will be like. Just the 5 or 6 things that otherwise were bewildering people, and have that out on YouTube. Send links to every captain. I just think there's much easier, more modern ways of communicating stuff than relying on pokey websites and sort of slightly lame social media outlets. But yeah, I mean that's only me. Look, we have been going on nearly 2 hours, and I do try and make that the absolute maximum. So fun as it's been, we do need to start thinking about winding this all up. So my final question lately has become pretty standardised, which is, I am a gobshite that talks over people too much. What have I either interrupted you saying, or have I not asked you that I really should have done by now? So this is pretty much a what do you want to say before I do my long and rambling close to the show. So we've been going last to you all evening, Mina, so I'm gonna come to you first this time. What have I either interrupted or not asked you that I really should have listened to? What do you want to say
I think
about us and the World Cup before I let you go?
to be fair, I think I mostly just butted in the end and said it. But I don't think there's anything more that I wanted to add in. I just think that I think actually it was a brilliant World Cup. There are things to tweak, but I think it was great, and I really hope that next time we go, there's the same sort of that community feel, that lovely feel that we had each day, the social part, which we didn't have in Dornbirn, because you were just like kind of with your own team, and that was it.
Yeah.
So this was much nicer. I hope that wherever the next one is, it ends up having the same feel to it. I don't think we'll have the weather necessarily, but I hope that it has the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where it'll be. Is it Florida or Newcastle? Is the
Newcastle have pulled out. Lyon from France, who came second for that bid, have said they're not going to bid again. Doesn't mean other parts of France might not look at it. So the only rumour I've been
okay?
hearing at all is there might be a bid from America. But until the bids start coming in, really no one at the moment has
We
any
don't
clue.
know. Okay, there we go. I
My
mean, we've got
question
the
to you
we've
then
got the
is, if
Euro
it was
Bowl.
Alicante again, run by the same
Yeah.
team, would you go, and would you recommend other
Yes.
people go?
Yes, and yes.
And if those
Because I
people were
think that they.
female blood bowlers, would you recommend they go?
Yes.
I hate to ask,
Because it
as we
was
said, you don't
so
have to be
fun.
Malcolm X, but because you're here, I sort of feel I should.
I hope so. I hope the next time I go that there's more, but
Yeah,
there's more women
agreed.
playing Blood Bowl. I hope so. I don't think there necessarily will be. Last time there was about 15 people, and there were actually the percentage was actually slightly higher. Effectively, it was probably 99 points, maybe 1 or 2%, whereas this time it was even worse. But I didn't check the percentage, but very, very, very
It did
bloody
seem
low.
very, very low, yeah.
Yeah, well, if it was, let's say, 15, and how many were there? 2,200 and something, you said. Yeah, I don't know, but that's not even 99. We're not even at 95 or not below, yeah, better than 99%, are we?
Yeah, I think it was about 1%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, less than 1%, isn't it? Yeah,
Jock,
so
what
I
have I
think.
not let you say? What have I interrupted or talked over?
I think you've given me a free rein for a large parts of it.
Good.
I think
Tell
one thing
others. My reputation is not deserved.
I think that one thing that's kind of struck me as we were kind of talking about, like we were talking about things that we could improve or what we should think about for the next World Cup. I think an interesting show, perhaps as the World Cup bid papers get released by NAF, is why not the three past main organisers on your show sort of point out having learned what they've learned and watched what they've watched, what would they recommend to be included in the next bid? And I think that's where the conversation probably goes from here.
It's a
In
very good
terms of,
idea for a show. Except I don't
um,
like having people on that obviously know a lot more than me, and they would.
yeah, so I mean, I'm curious to see that because obviously I've speculated around how they organise the buses, for example,
Yeah.
but I don't know because I wasn't behind the scenes. So I would love to kind of see that. I think one thing I kind of would leave certainly the viewers with the impression that I have, certainly my small corner of Blood Bowl, is that I think one of the key things that the organisers have achieved at Alicante is they've absolutely enthused Blood Bowlers to play more Blood Bowl. I mean, my guys come away from that having an absolute stonking time, and instantly we're like, we're going to Athens. There was just no
Yeah.
doubt. I think
2 hours before we went live, the NAF tickets went on sale for 2024, which is in May of 2024. They sold out in just over an hour.
Yeah,
That's
I got one.
Are they
Mate.
gone?
260 tickets. I believe
That's
they are
Steve's
now all
gone.
gone.
yeah, it's
Oh my
gone.
God.
I
Oh, I was toying with the idea,
did
wasn't I? I
send
was
you
toying
I
with
did
that.
send you a message, Mina.
I know.
I did my bit.
I know.
I tried to help, despite my
So
partner telling me
yeah,
I've got to stop helping people. I need to just play my Blood Bowl and stop organising things. And I promised her I will, but I lied and she knows it.
I think that's the happy note to finish on for me is that the organisers of the Alicante World Cup, regardless of the small things and the great things that they did, or didn't do or whatever, is that they've absolutely enthralled a community to carry on with the passion and grow it. And I think that's fantastic.
And the tabletop community, from everyone I talk to, has never been healthier. Every club I speak to, every tournament I go to and talk to the organisers of, there's twice the numbers there were 3 or 4 years ago. That particularly Season 2 seems to have kicked it up a level, that Blood Bowl is fully supported by Games Workshop now, and we're really getting the numbers in. So that's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, 280 tickets to the NAF sold out in 64 minutes. So if you're lucky enough to have got one, I hope to see you there. I'm not 100% sure I have, but I'm hopeful. Chicken, what will come to the newest and the youngest of our aged bunch of sweats and tryhards. Here you are with your young, fresh take on the world, a neophyte, a new little Blood Bowler bouncing around going, oh, isn't this fun? What have I not let you say? What have I talked over or dismissed that I shouldn't have done? What are your final words for the world of Blood Bowl?
I don't think you've dismissed anything. I think my point, like I'd like to say, is just how I had such a good time as a newcomer to tournaments. I could have gone to the World Cup and been completely overwhelmed. Found it maybe too intense, the duration and the atmosphere of so many coaches. But since the World Cup's finished, I've already booked into 4 tournaments. Went to one last weekend, which was 16 players, which was great. Still enjoyed it, but it was a massive contrast. I hope I've got my NAF ticket because I just tried to book that before. Well, I paid, so I assume I've got one before this podcast started. And I think as a new player going there, quite nervous because of the level of Blood Bowl that would be at the tournament, but going in looking for just fun and not being a competitive player but a fun player has motivated me to want to do more tournaments. And also like the crossover in the community. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. I've had a few glasses of wine now, but like seeing everyone on the Discords and Fumble with the shirts, the name on the like football shirts is just great. Like the community is so sort of
cross online and tabletop is brilliant. So I think, you could have said, oh, has the World Cup like maybe set the bar too high? I don't think it has. It's just inspired me to want to go to more tournaments.
And a 16-person tournament you found just as fun and interesting and wrinkle-filled, and
Yeah, I played Bestas, who apparently is ranked 22nd in the world,
he is. He's very, very good.
and I didn't feel completely like I got thrashed. He won 2-0, but he only got his last touchdown. I could have drawn if I got very lucky and he double sculled, but
Yeah,
yeah, like
that's Bestas.
you
Last time I faced him, he left his ball completely a route in that he hadn't seen into his cage. I had
it,
4 dice on it, didn't get it down, and he ran off and won. That's just
he had.
Bestas. He does that every time.
I had a chance to equalise would be being too optimistic, but it's great to then go to another tournament and see quality Blood Bowl as well. So it's really sort of I want to go to more tournaments. I'm fully addicted to Blood Bowl now.
Yeah, there's I mean, I joke about Bestas. What is quite interesting there is Bestas is an older gentleman. He's perhaps even got 10 years on me. Um, some people out there are going, that's not possible, PC. It is. There are people older than me, and some mountains, but not many countries. Um, and I do. We talk a lot about gender in Blood Bowl, and we absolutely should. It's I think the primary area we can grow quickly as a sport. We haven't talked about ethnicity. I was trying to ask Mina, it'll have to be another time, what she feels about one of my good friends in Blood Bowl calling himself that Asian guy, and his friend that other Asian guy. Those are their NAF names. Is that all right? I don't know. It's certainly very funny. And everyone knows who they are because they are that Asian guy and that other Asian guy. And they are two of the very few number of Asians and ethnic minority people playing Blood Bowl. Another area we should push out to. But age is another area where people do at times get some prejudice, both about the young, no, not expecting people like Minnie Morg to give them a game. Well, he absolutely will. So will Thomas W. and half the kids that play. But also about the old. And perhaps we look at someone like Bestas, who is in his 60s, and think, well, lovely old duffer, he's painted his team and come along to a tournament. And then he will shove his pro elf so far up you that you won't be sitting well for a week. And I love that. And perhaps, again, that's another stereotype we do need to break down. Blood Bowl's for everyone. There's absolutely no reason anyone can't play this game. So yes, take Bestas seriously, chicken. He'll do that to you again. You'll think, but I should have won, and he'll come away 3-0 win. He always does. For me, I loved the World Cup. People were amazed. I rarely leave London if I can avoid it, obviously. But I don't even play a lot of Blood Bowl. People think I do. I don't. It's the first time I've left Britain to play Blood Bowl. First World Cup I've been to. Really, I leave London for the NAFC and the UKTC. And this year, we're having a holiday in 24. That means I won't be doing the UKTC. So it was a really new experience for me. I absolutely loved it. I had such a good time. It was so lovely meeting so many people that watched this show and seemed to gain something from it. That was great and really really humbling, actually. At the start, very flattering, but luckily my team just took the piss and stopped me becoming an ego monster. And then it became just, well, I mean, that's the right answer, isn't it? You can't just go, oh, yeah, you're great, PC. No, it's bollocks. So they just slaughtered me to keep my feet on the ground. But then it became genuinely quite humbling, just how many people are out there playing Blood Bowl just quietly, just enjoying themselves, not making a big deal out of it, not kicking up a stink. And if you're one of those people, then please leave a comment on the YouTube. Even if there's certain people there, they've just got the habit of leaving a comment that's to help the algorithm every time, which I kind of love. So I tend to reply, thank you very much, because a reply also helps the algorithm. But if you are enjoying the show, then yeah, push it out to other people, let them know that you enjoy it. And if they enjoy it, great. If they don't, no biggie. It's out there if people like it. I was amazed by the community of Blood Bowl. It didn't matter who it was. Anywhere in Alicante, you bumped into a Blood Bowler, they'd talk to you, they'd share a beer with you, they'd spend some time with you. And that really cheered me up. There's times this game can be quite toxic, and I do want to do an episode about that. It's the one that's very emotional. It makes us feel and fear and rage because of some of the unfairness of dice. But at its core, there's a load of really nice people that play this game, and I think a community that is something to be proud of how we all deal with each other and treat each other and come together and have a laugh, play the game, play super competitive, but then slap people on the back afterwards. My big takeaway is next time I go to a major international event, make sure I'm in a disposable shirt. It got quite sad on the final day when everyone wanted to swap shirts. And the shirt I was in was from a tournament 4 years earlier that I really wanted to keep. So I ended up sort of matchmaking other people just to stop myself feeling bad. And I got about 6 shirt swaps done without actually having to let go of my own. So next time I go, I'll try and wear a disposable shirt, and I will swap it with somebody, because apparently that's for some reason what you do. I don't really want another person's shirt, but when in Rome. I thought the World Cup was great, a real success, really good times, but it can be better, and I hope the next one is better. Whether it should have 4,000 people, whether we should somehow limit it, I think that's really controversial to try and do. But that, to me, felt about as big as is easy to kind of get your head around. And even then, I saw some very experienced tournament operators looking at that and going, nah, no way would I try and run something like this. So maybe we won't get another one as big. Perhaps it should go to America and be smaller. That would be fine. America should certainly get a World Cup at some point. It is, after all, a World Cup. But that's it from me. There's no real conclusion to this one, except we all had fun. That was our experiences at the World Cup. That was One World, One Blood Bowl, number 39. And if everyone could wave, it helps me find it in the edit. Thanks very much, and night-night.
Cheerio.